got no time to waste. Let's go. You are now listening to Jason Anderson, and you are in the zone.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
And it's got so many cool applications, and it's, like you said, launched on Wednesday, so there's so much going on right now, and so many different things that you can do to create your sports content the way you see it, the way you like it.
What if I wanted to show my hoo-ha? Could I do that?
You're in the zone on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
All right, a Tuesday edition of The Zone right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Todd Lebo and Drake heading up until 2 o'clock. The next 4 hours, we've got you. A lot of stuff to get into today. Western Conference Finals over, Eastern Conference Finals over, but not officially yet. Game 4 tonight. We will see what the Celtics and Heat can do. If the Celtics can force a Game 5, Lakers unable to do that last night. Nuggets wrapping up that series in 4. Totally off. Had the Nuggets winning in 5, but then my official prediction was 6 because I thought it would be a 5-game series, but LeBron would have one crazy game that would sort of steal one, so it would go 6. No, the crazy game to try to steal one would have been Game 4 when he had a 40-point almost triple-double, but that did not result in a win. We'll talk a little basketball throughout the show today. We'll also talk some football. Adam Teicher at 11 o'clock from ESPN will be our guest, Chiefs Insider. We'll talk with him about OTAs going on right now, the Thursday Night Football flex scheduling package that was approved by the owners yesterday, the third quarterback, the emergency quarterback, that is now available on game days if your first two quarterbacks end up getting injured, the 49ers Brock Purdy rule, maybe they can call it that. Hopefully we don't ever see the Chiefs play Shane Buechele this year. That would be rough.
Are you saying he's already going to win the third quarterback job? It's done?
I think that's an assumption.
Yeah.
But
they like him.
Who is the
Olajuwon?
Olajuwon, yeah. See,
I forget his first name, but he was out there at rookie minicamp.
Yeah.
He's the only quarterback who I knew who it was.
Right, Olajuwon. Olajuwon, Buechele.
Maybe Chris?
I'm going to take your word for it. I'm going to call him Mr. Old man Olajuwon's son is the fourth quarterback. So they passed that rule. We'll talk with Adam Teicher about those things. NFL.com, even though he works for ESPN, NFL.com has their list of the most complete rosters across the NFL, 1 through 32. And where do the Chiefs come in this year? Last year, they were like 5th or 6th. This year, they're number 2, which is an interesting 14 months for the Chiefs and Brett Veach going from, you traded Tyreek Hill, what are you doing? All these questions.
They had a good 14 months.
They've had a good 14 months. They even won a Lombardi trophy along the way, the biggest part of those 14 months, I would say.
With a bunch of new players.
Yeah, and now there are probably less questions, more answers than there was a year ago, but they've moved up to number 2 in the most complete roster. And it's not just, they've got Patrick Mahomes, because, again, last year they were like 5th or 6th. So they have moved up ahead of some of the teams that last year were ahead of them. So we'll talk with Adam about those things, and then anything to glean from them being out at practice tomorrow with OTAs that, media is allowed to be out there, Todd.
I'm excited.
Are you going to be out there?
I'll be there.
Very cool. The whole practice. Not just
I may not
like
make
to
the
watch.
Whole practice. I have a sales meeting before, but I'll be there for almost all of it. Bucket hat at the ready.
Not just to watch them warm up and to take attendance, right?
Yeah.
Who's here, who's not here, but actually watch some of the drills and some of the
full contact OTAs.
Team activities.
No.
The OTAs, are they full padded?
No.
Is that what the new CBA allows them to do? The voluntary full padded practices, the old Marty Schottenheimer practices? No. Not going to happen. Okay.
No. I'll be running through, doing some installs.
Oh, yeah, they're going to install some things.
Phase 3.
We'll see who's at right tackle, left tackle. Where's Wanya Morris? What are the edge? What rotation?
Who's lining up where?
That's right. Is Rashee Rice, is he starting over MVS already? My goodness. Kadarius Toney, where's he at?
Justin Ross doing? That's the big one, right?
There you go.
Did he catch a pass? Did the Chiefs tweet it out?
A year ago, that was the big one. Where's Justin Ross? What is he doing? Now it's like Rashee Rice, the actual Justin Ross. They drafted a guy from what they were hoping, or people were hoping.
We will be out there tomorrow, and then it'll be the next 2 Thursdays after that. So it's Wednesday this week, and it'll be Thursdays the next 2. My assumption is they're going to let these guys have a long Memorial Day weekend, so they'll be able to bust out tomorrow, and they'll go.
2 Thursdays from tomorrow, is that the mandatory minicamp, or the next 2 even voluntary?
Yeah,
they're it's voluntary this week, next week voluntary, and then the week after that is voluntary?
The mandatory minicamp is June 13, 14, 15.
Okay.
13, 14, 15, 3 days. And that's when you get fined if you don't show.
That's right. If you're on the team, because Chris Jones a couple of years ago didn't show, but he hadn't signed his franchise tag, so he wasn't on the team.
Wasn't on the team.
You can't get fined for that. And then Andy Reid asked about him. Well, we're talking about players that are here and that are on the team,
and it's voluntary.
Absolutely, yes.
We've gone through this before with
sure.
OTAs. We had the pummeling, which was 6 years ago.
2017.
Yeah, I think it was right. When Justin Houston, Eric Berry.
I mean, if you're going to keep pummeling me, I'm only going to do the one deal.
Do the one, and that's
I'm only going to do the one.
It's kind of what we do now is the one.
Yeah,
they don't do extras.
Thanks for pummeling them, Todd.
It wasn't me.
Are you going to be out there tomorrow?
Plenty of pummeling.
Are you going to ask him about the Astros tomorrow?
I might. Let's go do it.
Was that 2 years ago that it was like it was awesome. It was every question was
maybe
about
3 years ago, and then we didn't play baseball. It was terrible.
It's ridiculous.
How long ago was it? I don't even know.
Now
I don't know, but it'll be fun.
Now you got Aaron Judge peeking, and is he cheating? Is he not? I mean,
we'll have
what are they doing?
Coach and Patrick, and then maybe other players. We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll have that all live for you
see who
tomorrow.
They may have
the Zone.
Yes, around 1 o'clock. So we'll have Mick Schaefer come in early. It's an early day for Mick Schaefer. He's got to get up an hour earlier now.
It's early for him.
You know, those TV guys, they stay up to like 2 or 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
So having to be here at noon.
Doing the post-show recap.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
At Kelly's. No, wait, that's what we used to do at Channel 4.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's where you guys went? Have a little pizza, a little suds.
Yeah, whatever.
Good for you.
Talk about the 10.
That's what it was. We're going out. It's camaraderie, it's fellowship, and it's work because we're talking about what we can improve on. What did we think of the 10? Those 5.5 minutes that we had on the air. What did we think?
5.5.
Sorry, those 3.5 minutes we had on the air. What did we think about that? Let's have some drinks and some food.
Let's do it
to really go over that. So and Mick Schaefer just hanging out and waiting for the noon hour tomorrow. So that's how tomorrow lines up. But today, Adam Teicher at 11 o'clock, and then Les Norman at noon today, breaking the norm. We'll talk with him, and we'll hang out with my format says Todd Lebo at 1 o'clock is going to join us.
Are we doing Fact or Fiction or no?
I mean, how would we do Fact or Fiction? Can we produce live on the air? I mean, I was thinking about this. Like, does Curtis come in and do Fact or Fiction? Do we get Jack to come in and do?
Drake can make the questions.
Drake do Fact or Fiction
Drake's
for just me and you?
Fiction. We'll be fine.
No, we'll be fine without Fact or Fiction. There will be a Fact or Fiction.
Fiction.
I think it's fiction as well.
That's
Drake,
right.
What do you think?
Definitely fiction.
Okay, it's a fiction. Maybe we have Alex
call Beards
do the Fact or Fiction. Maybe
but Beards can
we do? What if
we saw Beard Saturday?
Josh from Europe. He's in London right now.
Yeah.
Josh. He sent
That's
me
a fact.
That's a fact.
he sent Drake and I a text this morning while on his honeymoon. So
he's always thinking about work.
Yeah, and Mick, and also Mick Schaefer. It was Drake, me, and Mick Schaefer. There's a picture in London of a sign that says "Zone Ends."
Zone ends.
And he says, and Drake said, "Was that sign posted at 1:56?" But that was a good response.
He did it right. Yes.
So yes, Josh is still thinking of us, even though he's on his honeymoon in London, and then maybe like Paris, and then wherever else.
Barcelona.
Barcelona.
I believe
it's
so.
Barcelona. Barcelona.
Going to the big cities.
Z.
England, France, and Spain. There you go.
Those big cities.
Big cities. Those are big cities.
How many countries you got in this country?
You ever heard of London? It's a big city.
It is a big city. Big Ben.
Yeah, Big Ben Parliament. Right there.
Ben,
Never
Parliament.
been. Well, I actually have been to the airport. Went to Heathrow, and we were there for about 3 hours. So it counts. I've been to London.
I've never been to Europe.
It was a changing of planes. That's been there, right?
I've been to one country outside of the United States, and that is Mexico. That's it. I haven't even been to Canada.
I'm going to Canada in a couple weeks.
Look at you.
Yeah. I've been to Canada once when you could just walk across Niagara Falls with my grandparents.
Is that right?
You didn't need any papers. So I was.
Did everybody walk across Niagara Falls with their grandparents?
But there was a lot of people there that day.
Back in the day when you could just walk across
we
Niagara Falls with your grandparents.
There's a bridge thing or something. It wasn't like, actually through the falls, but we went across and I was, all right, yeah, we're in Canada. And then we came back. So
the NFL put out their global markets program.
Who's got Canada? Buffalo?
Minnesota and Seattle. The Vikings and Seahawks have Canada. Why? Don't
Buffalo
they already
played games there?
I know, but don't they already have Canada? Do they have to then have Canada as like their territory to be able to expand their reach into Canada?
Nobody lives over there by Minnesota either in Canada.
I was looking through and I didn't do a lot of the tallying, but I think the Chiefs may be the only team that has 4 different countries. The Chiefs there's only 21 teams that have a global market program that they can go and expand their reach or call it a home base. Chiefs have 4 countries: Austria, Germany, Mexico, and Switzerland.
Yeah.
4 different countries for the Chiefs. So not Canada, though.
No Canada.
Not Mexico.
Leave that there. Austria, Germany, and Switzerland are all very tight with each other.
Very tight. Very tight.
Very tight.
So that's how the show lines up today. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us, to be a part of the show, part of the conversation. 913-912-4810 text line to hang out today. Let's start with the Royals. By the way, text says, I love the city of Spain. Had a great time. Sincerely, Rex Hudler. That's pretty good. I like that one.
Barcelona.
What a great planet that is.
Not the capital.
Yes.
They want to be their separate thing at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Catalonia over there. They have some issues over in Barcelona.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to take your word for that.
Yeah. They almost want to be separate.
Who's in Spain? The Bears and the Dolphins are in Spain.
Okay.
So there you go.
Good for them.
Great.
Who got Andorra?
That's a little bitty.
Yes. The Eagles got Ghana.
Yeah, well, that's growing right there.
They're the only ones.
Andorra's like the size of Olathe, right?
Yeah,
really?
Andorra's a little bitty. Like Montserrat, Andorra.
Only one team in Brazil. It's Miami.
Big country.
Miami and Brazil. Yeah. So Miami's got Spain and Brazil.
I was going
to say
that's the big market. That's where all the football players come from, Switzerland.
It's 2 different languages, though. It's Portuguese and Spanish. So nobody's got Why wouldn't the Miami Dolphins just get Portugal too?
I don't
go
know.
ahead and take care of Brazil, Portugal, and Spain.
Maybe Portugal's too little for them.
They're the Dolphins, right? They're thinking big. They traded for Tyreek Hill and Bradley Chubb. They're thinking big here, okay? Brazil and Spain for the Dolphins. I think that might be it for Miami. Doesn't matter. All right, let's get into the show. Let's talk some Royals and the big news yesterday, and that is Hunter Dozier DFA'd by the Royals. And while it might be something that was expected at some point this year, when Nicky Lopez comes back, what's the decision they're going to make? Is it going to be Michael Garcia? Are they going to DFA Hunter Dozier? Well, there is a level of expectation that a decision was going to be made by Dozier because he was forcing the hand of the Royals with how bad he was playing. It still is significant that they make the decision that they did yesterday to move on from Hunter Dozier, to DFA him. I don't know how many teams will DFA a player before Memorial Day that is signed all the way through the next year. And I'm not just talking about, well, the Royals wouldn't DFA a player that they owe money, and, boy, this is kind of early for the Royals to do that. I'm just talking about Major League Baseball in general. How many teams would DFA a player before Memorial Day who is under contract the entire next year? So I think there's some significance to that. And that's even teams that might be in better position to contend than what the Royals are right now, with their record of 14-35, roughly 21 games under 500. They are struggling right now. So that's point number one, is that they've at least done that. They haven't gone the route of, well, we're paying this person money, so therefore he will play. The playing time is going to be dictated by the payroll. Who gets the most money is going to get the most playing time. That has not been the case. They gave it the old college try, gave them, 90 plate appearances, things like that, gave them a number of games to try to figure out if they could trade him. They tried to trade him. You get 49, 50 games into the season, nobody would take on Dozier and the contract. Of course not. Why would you give up anything for Hunter Dozier if you're going to then take on that contract, where the Royals would probably eat some money because they're already going to be eating a lot of money? They've already signed the contract, but they are going to eat $15.6 million is what they owe him the rest of the way. And I don't know how some of the technicalities in the contract works. He needs 400 more plate appearances this year to get $1.5 million raise on next year's contract. If he gets that for another team, do the Royals then pay him $1.5 million more?
I don't mean to be mean, but where are you going to get 400 plate appearances?
I totally agree with that.
With the Royals?
I totally agree with that. Does he end up with Oakland or something? Like he's an A and all of a sudden he's the starting third baseman and gets 400 plate appearances, and now there's $1.5 million that the Royals are on the hook for after that? I don't know. I doubt that's the case. That's a small little aside that just popped in my head for some reason. But they owe him $15.6 million the rest of the way.
Because he's got money next year, and then there's a buyout, right?
There's a $1 million buyout. So they owe him $9.25 next year, and then a $1 million buyout. So they're going to owe him $10.25 plus
half of this year.
The 5 point whatever else that they owe him this year to get to the $15.6 million. But that is significant. And I do think there was a level of them trying to see if they could get something for him, because you end up DFAing this player who played for the last 9 games, who, he started almost half your games over the last 2 weeks. I mean, that's not somebody that you're like, this guy is so bad, we have to DFA him. No, he's been playing. He's played more than Matt Duffy, who's still on the team. So if you're looking at guys just to get some rest, then it would be mixing in Matt Duffy, not necessarily Hunter Dozier. You're mixing in Hunter Dozier because you would like somebody to trade for him. It didn't happen. You simply move on. I think one of the lessons here, if there are lessons to be learned from Hunter Dozier and the decision that was made yesterday, one of the lessons is this is not the old regime where you're going to be pinching pennies to the degree that you even play some inferior players because you don't want to simply eat that money. It's the sunk cost fallacy that I think previous Royals front office ownership would not understand, and they would keep running Hunter Dozier out there. I wonder if Maikel Garcia would be in Omaha right now if Dayton Moore and let's say even David Glass were in charge. Glass was owning the team and Dayton Moore was the GM. If Garcia would be in Omaha because he's got an option and you're not going to DFA Hunter Dozier because he's a nice guy, because they really like him. Good dude. So they want him to be a part of the team. That is a change. So first and foremost, that's different than what we've seen with the Royals of the past.
It's definitely different, and it was interesting out there yesterday when we got to talk to JJ and Q. And listen, Matt Couturier doesn't know Hunter Dozier well. I mean, but he likes him as a person, right? There's no question about that. He got this extension in the spring of 21. So that was 100% Dayton Moore is the GM at that time. And the team was owned by John Sherman. I was a little off in my head yesterday when I was thinking about this. I thought this was it. David Glassing. But this is John Sherman. This is I'm going to call it a mistake, okay? Because there's no question if you're DFAing a player when you still owe him this much money and you've given him a contract, it was a mistake to give him the deal. I appreciate the fact the Royals don't try to do this a lot, and they tried it, and they made a mistake because it didn't work out well. There was no reason, really, to sign Hunter Dozier to that contract when they did. He was not he wasn't coming off a very good year, first off, in 20. His good year was 19, right?
Yeah,
That's
right.
the year. In 20, he didn't play much. He was hurt.
But they were saying, look, he's going to bounce back. It was a COVID year. Everybody had these odd things happening. He hurt his thumb or wrist in game number 1 in 2020, so he was kind of just playing through that. So this is going to be different now, and he's going to be more the guy he was in 19. We got cost control.
Yes, which it's amazing. If you look at his numbers, they've just continually dropped and dropped and dropped every year. And listen, not everyone can be really great at this game. They just can't. And this was a mistake to do this. It's not a mistake to get rid of him at this point. You have to make space. Nicky Lopez is back from his appendectomy. Maikel Garcia is playing well. These are young players who they feel will be good at some point when this team is good. I don't think they see an upside for Hunter Dozier. Hunter Dozier is an interesting guy. He's not a kid, okay? He was a first-round draft pick quite a while ago now, and he was a college player. This wasn't a high school player. And I've talked to him many times out there. They've been through a lot with this organization, changing, batting coaches and different things like that. And he seems to me to be old school-ish on some of the things that this organization seems to be forward thinking now with some of the tendencies they do in batting practice and the analytical side of the thing. He seems a little more Dayton Moore-y, old schooly, and this is kind of the last part of that. Now, Sal is Sal. He's a unicorn. He's different, I think. But you look around now at the people who Dayton Moore brought in or signed to extensions, they're gone now. I mean, Whit Merrifield was traded last year. Andrew Benintendi was here. Hunter Dozier.
Michael A. Taylor.
Michael A. Taylor. This is
Mondesi.
Mondesi, yes. So people who might think that J.J. Picollo was just Dayton's clone, this is another example.
Or Sherman is just David Glass part D.
Yeah, this is different. Now, I think the Glasses did finally. Omar Infante, I think they finally let go at some point. But this is a lot of money for this team. This team's payroll is not a ton. They don't have a lot of people under contract for the future either. Basically, Salvi, right? They don't have loads of money laying out here on players.
They have 3 players that they have under contract right now that they are going to be paying next year. 4 players, Hunter Dozier being one of them. But they'll be paying Salvi, they'll be paying Jordan Lyles, and they'll be paying Jake Brentz $1 million next year. But everybody else is going to be arbitration. That's what they'll be going through, arbitration or free agency. Mm-hmm. So they've got guys team control.
Right,
but as far as money allocated, and they have nobody under contract except for Salvi in 25.
Right.
They own $20 million.
They're going to owe Hunter Dozier $1 million.
But
yeah, so
right.
they're making a change here. This is, and the way I tried to ask it to JJ yesterday, this is a good sign for fans, and he didn't want to say it was a good sign, but for fans, this is a good sign. If you got a player on your team who's not living up to what it should be, and he's blocking the chance to see somebody else play. Now, there's not some star, can't miss prospect as we went through yesterday of the top 10 people who are age whatever. 16. It's not like Hunter Dozier is getting pushed out, but they need to see other people play because Hunter Dozier is not going to get this figured out. And if he is going to get it figured out, I think they'd like it to happen. They just don't want it to see it happen here because they're trying to figure other things out. This team's not going to go to the playoffs this year. They're not going to win a bunch of games. But you might as well do that with people who might be a part of a legitimate future for this team in a few years, not someone who's just under contract for next year.
Part of the next transition, and we'll take a timeout, we'll get into what I think the lessons are from the Dozier tenure with the Royals. They're going to have to – money is going to need to be spent because they want the taxpayers to spend money. So this offseason is going to be crucial. They've gone from $143 million payroll in 2017 down to $92.5 this year. So they've lost $50 million on a payroll since 2017. That's going from David Glass to John Sherman. So that is not just, now John Sherman owns the team and they're going to be spending some money, but it's also that second phase of a rebuild has now been washed out. Now it's the phase 3. Phase 1 was getting the players that won a World Series. And phase 2 was Witt, Salvi, Dozier, Mondesi, those players they were building around, maybe even Duffy, if he was going to be healthier. The players they were going to have that were going to be a core of we're ready to compete. They go and get Benintendi. They sign Michael A. Taylor. They bring in Carlos Santana. We're ready to compete. That was the next phase. That's all washed out. Benintendi gone, Taylor gone, Santana gone, Witt gone, Dozier gone, Mondesi gone, only Salvi. Really remaining from that group of these are the guys we're going to compete with. So this is now phase 3. And when you get and start over, your payroll is going to drop when you start over.
Players are just cheaper.
And now
it's going to be
what do they do over the next 2 or 3 years to prove that, it's more than just, we're going to DFA Dozier. But you're already paying that money. Yeah. So it's not like they are adding money to the payroll.
They need to go sign some people.
So what happens now in this offseason and make right decisions?
And don't get scared because Jordan Lyles isn't very good right now. Yeah. You got to keep spending money.
And get in the business of the Nathan Eovaldi's of the world that we talked about yesterday.
They have to hope. I saw Chris Bubich yesterday out there in the clubhouse. He had his surgery. He has to be better. That's right.
He
and Daniel Lynch.
When he makes
Brady
his way
Singer,
back up.
That was their plan. Those guys have got to come to some sort of fruition. Other than that, you're just out there spinning wheels, which is what it feels like they're doing.
That's right. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll talk about some of the lessons. I want to hear from J.J. Picollo, who was out there at Kauffman Stadium before the game. Todd Lebo out there talking to him, and also Matt Quattrero. We'll do that. The lineup adjustment. Bobby Witt dropped to 6th. Nick Pratto leading off last night. We'll talk about that as well. More Zone rolling along here on this Tuesday edition, brought to you by Google Fiber. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. We'll talk with Adam Teicher, a little football on the docket coming up at 11 o'clock from ESPN, and then Les Norman breaking the norm coming up at noon. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show. 913-912-4810. Text says, I wish I could get paid not to work.
Yeah,
well, I do. I mean, I do get paid not to work, let's be honest.
There's plenty of baseball players getting paid not to work. They're out there. All over the place.
Yes.
All over the place.
Eric Hosmer now, right?
Yeah,
Eric
he's
Hosmer,
DFA'd.
and he's dude, what a bad deal the Padres signed.
Yeah, he's getting
Hey,
paid.
be thankful that, because, I mean, Dayton Moore really wanted to sign Eric Hosmer. They tried too hard to sign him. And he took the San Diego money because it was a little bit more, and they were all excited about all the young players out there. And they've got a very good franchise, right? And we've gone and won the World Series or anything yet, but he took that money out there, and his contract was fairly front-loaded with big numbers, and the last 3 years of it were player option. That was the the contract of choice back then, the player option. I can opt out, right? And he's making like $13 million a year, and like, no, he ain't opting out of that. It's like Ian Kennedy here. When the Royals signed Ian Kennedy, he had a couple years of opt-out at the end, and I remember near the end of the year, someone asked him, so you think opting out? He was like, are you kidding me? And he's still making money out in the world, but he was not going to get the amount of money that the Royals were offering him.
You know how much the Padres owe Eric Hosmer
it's
on his
like
contract?
$13 a year or something, isn't it?
$37 million more they're paying Eric Hosmer.
Yeah.
The Padres are.
And he ruined their
million.
Trade they wanted to make.
That's right. Because
And
he
they still-
did not accept the trade.
Yeah. So then he was a Red Sox for a minute, and then he
Cub
was a Cub
for 45 games or whatever.
and now he's is someone going to sign him?
Yeah, the Padres are paying him $12.25 this year. They pay him, and then $12.25 the next 2 years. So
And the Royals can't give him
37.
the Royals can't give him the Lorenzo Cain treatment and bring him back and have a day and
No.
retire him, because then he forfeits that other $37 million.
Is that right?
Yeah, because once you retire,
Yeah, look for that in 4
Oh
years.
yeah, duh, that's right.
because
Yeah, I
that's
guess.
what Gil Mesh did, right? He walked away from $11 million. All he had to do was show up for the first day of spring training, and instead he said no.
Yeah,
Keep the money.
It's, who amongst us wouldn't just walk away from $11 million just to show up for one? $11 million. Who needs it?
I always
You
like
know?
to look through these deals and kind of consider it, what you got for the player. And, the Royals got the best of Eric Hosmer. They had 7 years of him, and it was fine. His WAR for the 17 years with the Royals, or 7 years with the Royals, was 15.4, which is, it's fine. Okay, but that's not some great all-star, okay? 7 years, and you accumulate 15 points of WAR, and it cost him $30 million. Okay?
That's great.
So the Padres had him for 5 years, gave him $105 million, and he accumulated 3.7 points of WAR.
And they still owe him $37 million.
So he's going to make $100 million. That's $30 million per point of WAR, basically.
By the way, just in a difference of, we're talking about who's under contract for the Royals next year, and then even in 2025, they've got one player, $20 million of Salvi, that they've got under contract in 2025. In 2027, just looking at this payroll here, in 2027, the Padres already have $150 million on their payroll. In 2027, they're already allocating $150 million in 2027.
How many more motorcycle wrecks will that be?
I don't know. Tatis is getting 25 of that, so
Yeah.
actually 26 of that.
Yeah, maybe it'll work for him, maybe it won't.
Yeah, I mean,
listen,
but
people
remember when-
love it when they try.
Remember when the Royals and Padres were both viewed as small market?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that small market franchise, the Padres in San Diego, or that small market franchise in Houston, the Astros, small market franchise in Kansas City. Yeah, that makes a little more sense than Houston and the Rangers and the Padres. But the Padres, $150 million in 2027. But so a couple of lessons for Hunter Dozier that I came away with.
For the Royals or Hunter Dozier? Because Hunter
Dozier's
did this
lesson
right.
is well done.
Good job, son.
Congratulations. He's gonna, when he's fully paid off by the Royals, he's gonna make $30 million from the Royals. He's already made 15. He's getting 15 more. Plus, he got 2.5 at signing when they drafted him. So $33 million he's gonna make
My lesson
from the
for him
Royals.
might be, hey, you want to defer some of this? Let's go.
Bobby
Bonilla
Bonilla.
or Ken Griffey's still making money from from the Reds.
Bonilla's coming up in another month or so.
Yeah.
Bobby Bonilla Day gets another $1 million into the account. That's a hell of a deal till like
Royals
2030.
lessons, though. What do you got?
Yeah, the Royals lessons, a couple of them. One, Dozier was a guy that they invested in because they were ready in that next phase. So the next phase could have been sped up if Dayton wasn't as loyal to the Hosmers and Canes and Moustakas and players that he thought he was going to be able to hold on to. And can you just go for one more ride? And, boy, you don't want to trade somebody and have some kid out there with a Hosmer jersey and then Hosmer's not playing for your team anymore, which, by the way, then they left in free agency. So it's the same thing. There hasn't been that loyalty that's been repaid to the Royals outside of when they don't get the deal they thought they would get on the open market and their market comes back to the Royals. See Alex Gordon. That's the loyalty that's been paid back. To me, one of the lessons of Dozier is the assessment of where you actually are versus the rest of the league. This is one of the 5 lessons, I think. Versus the rest of the league, who you're going to pay and who you should move on from, and the loyalty that would then blind you to what is happening where you think with Merrifield, Dozier, Mondesi, Salvi, Benintendi, Michael A. Taylor, like these were the guys that you're going to pay and are going to compete, as opposed to if you were to trade away some of the guys earlier, trade away some of the guys in that first wave, how far along would they be in this process? And also, Salvi.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big part of it. I love Salvi as much as anybody, and I would be perfectly okay if Salvi played every single game for the Royals. But I'm still going to have my love for Salvi if he's playing for somebody else. I'm still going to love Salvi and remember all the times with the Royals if he's playing for somebody else. It's not as much fun watching Salvi play on a team that's going to lose 100 games and just be out there and say, you know what? It's great that Salvi's there, but that's kind of the draw, is how much fun he is. But can he bring something back that can make it even more fun? I loved watching Zach Greinke pitch back in the day. I didn't want him to trade Zach Greinke. Worked out pretty well that they were able to do that. It's about making the right decisions because there aren't a whole lot of mistakes that a team like the Royals can make. And they are at a position to where they will not be trading Salvi at max value right now. They didn't trade Whit Merrifield at max value. Maybe they can do that with Scott Barlow, although he got lit up last night in the 10th inning. Aroldis Chapman, who knows what he's going to do over the next month before they finally move him.
Any of those players you mentioned before.
Yeah, no, they didn't trade any of them.
Hosmer, Kane,
Mondesi, they traded. But you're talking, right, of that first wave, they didn't do that. So I think one of the lessons is this next wave of players with Vinny and Bobby and MJ Melendez and Prado and Massey and whoever else that might be on their way up, or Gavin Cross, Mazzucato, Daniel Lynch, Drew Waters. I'm not even going to say Carter Jensen, damn it, because I want him to be the starting catcher in 2026 for this Royals team. Park Hill kid, who has a 176 batting average and a 420 on-base percentage because he's walking every at-bat. But I think one of the lessons is that just being connected and saying, it's these guys or nobody else, because I don't want to extend the rebuilding process another couple of years. This was a transaction. Can they be more transactional? More transactional is Witt, Melendez, Salvi, Prado, guys in the minors making minor league deals. Because Josh and I went through the Rays a month ago, and the amount of Rays players that are on their team that they traded is unbelievable. I mean, it's almost their entire 26-man roster they acquired via trade.
Yeah.
And that's the Rays. And they're not out there spending $150 million.
Signed a couple
They're going
guys, right?
in.
They made a couple of pitching ones that worked. The bottom
I've got
line,
my scratch piece of paper here somewhere.
The bottom line in all of these things is whether you're drafting players in football or making transactions in baseball or whatever sport it is, you just got to be right. You know, they were right to trade Zach Greinke, but Zach Greinke got traded more than one time, right? But the Royals, he got traded. They were right. Yeah. They got really good players for him. People were so mad when Will Myers got traded. You know what? They did the right thing because they got James Shields and Wade Davis, and those guys helped them do what they needed to do. If they'd have traded for 2 other players on that team who didn't get the job done, it would have been a bad trade.
And they also tried to trade Zach Greinke to the Nationals, and he vetoed the deal.
Right.
He said, no, I don't want to go to the Nationals. So then it worked out with Milwaukee. who knows
You just gotta
what's
be
the
right.
Royals' history if he's like, yeah, sure, I'll go to Washington. I'll go to D.C., but he didn't want to play in a bigger city. He wanted to stay in a smaller market until he sort of, grew out of some of the anxiety that he had.
Right.
For
Right?
sure.
I mean, Brett Veach could have, and John Dorsey could have traded up and drafted Deshaun Watson. But they traded up and drafted Patrick Mahomes. You just got to be right.
The Bears traded up and got Trubisky.
They did, and they probably should have drafted someone different, like maybe Patrick Mahomes. So you got to be right. So that's what your grade card is.
Mm-hmm.
Dayton Moore was right a bunch. I mean, they drafted Eric Hosmer and Mike Moustakas and got them signed. People didn't think they could get them signed. They were Boris clients. They went right down to the last instant to get those guys signed. But if they hadn't, signed, I mean, think about what that would have been.
Yeah.
Like you draft this hotshot first baseman from Florida and he doesn't even sign with you. I mean, that could have happened. Those things could have happened. And then they were wrong, unlike Bubba, right? They draft Bubba and it was wrong. I mean, they gave him $8 million and
they were wrong on Dozier, too.
They were wrong on Dozier.
Because it was a signability deal so they can get Sean Manaea, but there are players behind Dozier that signed for as much or less that were really good
Sean
players.
Manaea ended up being a piece in the trade.
He was a piece in the trade, right.
So,
but even if you wanted to go that route.
Wrong so many times.
Especially
since
in the
about
drafting,
2015 on the drafting.
Mm-hmm.
They have just not done it. And listen, Bobby Witt looks like he's a major league player, but this is not Mike Trout, okay, kids? It
288 on base percentage isn't great.
And Vinny looks like a good player and stuff like that, but they have not so far drafted a bunch of players who have come up here and contributed to anything good yet. You just got to be right, man.
The Rays, real quick as we take a break, the Rays, I looked at their starting 9 and then their starting staff. This was including Jeffrey Springs, who has Tommy John surgery, so it's about a month ago. So those 14 players, 8 of the 14 players they acquired via trade. Arozarena, Paredes, Ramirez, Siri, Bethancourt, Diaz, Springs, Rasmussen, 8 of the 14 players that were the main players for the Rays when they started off 13, 14-0, whatever it was, were via trade.
And they had a home run with Franco, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who was an international free agent signing, who they signed for almost $4 million.
Yeah.
So
it was not some
he was one of the
lottery
top
ticket.
Yes, it wasn't Ellie De La Cruz, who I like to talk about with the Reds, who was
or Salvi or Jose Altuve. These
right,
guys
Salvi was like $10,000, but Ellie De La Cruz was a nobody in the system for the Reds. Got almost no money, was just a dude, and now 2 years later, he's one of the premier prospects in baseball. He threw a pitch 99, or threw a from shortstop, threw a guy out throwing 99 miles an hour from shortstop to first. He's hit the ball 118 miles an hour, and then yesterday he hit the ball literally out of the ballpark. In the stadium that he's playing, over the seats and over the railing.
Hey, listen, the Royals have spent some big money on international signings. They haven't worked out.
Right.
The lottery tickets have been the better ones.
They have not. But they have 4 of the 14 players the Rays were draft picks. 1 of the 14 was a free agent. 1 player they signed via free agency out of those 14 players.
The Rays did. They're just right a lot, is what they are. They're right on Franco. They're right on a lot of these players who they drafted. They traded away for other people. And they're right, like they were right. Arozarena was going to be a great St. Louis Cardinal, but he made them mad because he was.
But then he
Instagram lived
in the clubhouse,
and they're like, "No, you're out." And they traded him out of spite or something.
Yeah,
which was not very smart.
But they also drafted, the Rays did, Liberator, the pitcher who was 2 spots ahead of Singer. And then he was pitching well, and so they at least had a piece that they were willing to move on.
Right.
Would the Royals have been willing to move on from Brady Singer at that time for Arozarena? No. Where the Rays were like, yeah, we'll give you a Liberator for Randy Arozarena. Sure. The Royals, no, Singer, this guy. Can you imagine a minor league fan if they have to realize that Singer's playing for the Cardinals? Yeah. There's a kid in Omaha
feels
right
different now with the Royals. It feels different.
Hopefully it
and
is.
that was a move yesterday that
Hopefully
reinforced that.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll hear from JJ Piccolo next.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810WHB.com, in the 810 mobile app, or by subscribing to The Zone wherever you get your podcasts.
For most of the kids, school's either out or almost out, and that means that KC is heating up with lots of great events, from Royals games, big-time concerts. When you need tickets, be sure to check out our friends at Tickets for Less. Shop online at ticketsforless.com or head to the Tickets for Less app. They've got great savings on tickets. At Tickets for Less, you get transparent pricing. You never pay ridiculous service fees like you do on other sites. Plus, save even more when you use promo code 810 at checkout at ticketsforless.com.
Heritage Park Golf Course is excited to announce the grand opening of Wheelings, a 6-hole par 18 golf course.
We're talking about who sits where in the locker room.
Drake wasn't even in the control room, by the way. I mean, Drake just walked in and was like, "Go!" pointing at me, screaming, and I'm like, "What? What are we doing here?"
I had time to microwave a meal. I did not.
I thought I had time to talk about things in the clubhouse. I don't know. Let's hear from J.J. Picollo. Wasn't in the clubhouse, in the dugout before the game. J.J. Picollo meeting with reporters after the decision. Here he is weighing in on the decision to DFA Hunter Dozier.
No doubt it was a tough one. It's 10 years he's been with the organization, and we've known him since day one. You just look at how our team's starting to shape up and opportunities and how we balance our roster out. With Nicky coming back tonight, made it a little bit tougher to get him on the field, and just feel bad, for Hunter. He's such a pro. He works hard. He's everything you want in a teammate. So just want to wish him the best.
Aside from the feelings you guys all have for him, fans are fans, right? And I think they see this as a sign that the club is willing to eat some money to get rid of a guy who's not playing as much. Is that a fair thing? It's a good thing for the Royals to be able to say goodbye to some cash to make room for someone else?
I wouldn't say it's a good thing. I mean, you don't ever want to, just make arbitrary decisions and not work out. So it's certainly something we had to discuss, and are we willing to do that at this point? And with the support of ownership, we were able to make this decision and move on. And we just have to look forward to what's happening in the coming years. And, some of the guys that are on the team now, I think, are more part of the team than Hunter was.
For the future.
For future, yeah.
Look, he's not going to say it's a good thing because it would sound like, yeah, it's good we cut Hunter Dozier, we DFA'd him, but it is a good thing. It's a good thing from a message. It's a good thing that, you make a mistake and you move on from it. Mm-hmm. If you draft Kavarius Russell and it's a mistake, even though it was a third rounder, you cut him at the end of training camp and you just move on. Breland Speaks 2 years in, it was a mistake, you cut him, you move on. Hunter Dozier, it was obviously a mistake, you DFA, you move on. But part of the question is, what do they do now with these current players? Do they sign them long term? Do they extend them? Do they have them under contract, cost control, and buy out a couple of years of free agency like they did with Hunter Dozier? J.J. Picollo weighing in on the current players that are on the team and the potential of extensions.
I think we would be incorrect if we just said we're not going to look to extend players. So I think it always has to be part of your everyday discussions. But I think what we're seeing here is an ownership group that's willing that if the decision didn't work out, that we could move on and not feel like we have to keep a player just because the extension was in place.
Maybe some situations like that could be coming up. I know people have talked about wanting Vinny to maybe be here. Have you had a chance to talk to him about possibly moving forward with anything?
Yeah, so, a couple things on that. One, I think we've stated our intentions that we want to try to extend players. At the same time, we have a team right now that's struggling. Our focus is a little bit more on how do we move in the right direction with this team. And the conversations that will go on between Vinny's representation, our front office, should remain private just so Vinny can go and play. And that goes for any player on this team.
I think there's an element of having cost control, of knowing exactly what that player is going to be for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 years and not have to go into arbitration and fight that each and every year. I think there's an element of having an advantage there if you're looking at a payroll and you don't have as much access and money as some others to spend. But hearing Vinny's side, it doesn't sound like the Royals are all too interested in signing Vinny Pasquantino right now. Vinny Pasquantino said on Friday on MLB or on SiriusXM in an interview, was asked about, do you want to stay with the Royals and sign a long-term deal? And he said, to answer your question directly or to answer that direct question, I'll say what I said on MLB radio. I think for every player, your dream of playing for the same team your entire career. I really enjoy this organization. So on the surface, yes, I'd love to stay here. There's way more that goes into it than that. There has to be want from the other side as well to want me to be around. So I don't really know how to answer that, to be honest. Short answer, sure, yeah, that'd be great. But, there's two sides to that.
Yeah, Vinny is a very smart, mature player. This is not some kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
he's 26 years old already. He's not. It's only 1 year in the big leagues, but he's not 1 year in the big leagues like Bobby Witt being 22/23.
Almost 26. Yeah.
Yeah,
he'll
right.
He'll be 26 this year.
Graduated.
He's he's a college guy, all that stuff, and he knows the game and the business. So, I really like him. He wants to be the face of the organization. He enjoys the pass squatch. He does all those things, right? But at this point, he's only played well for like a year. He wasn't on this team to start the season last year. He's been up for about a year now, right? He came up in May-ish last year.
I think it was in June, actually. It was like
might have been, yeah. It was
late June, because we had the fun with Corey about if Vinny's not called up by Friday, then I'm going to leave, even though he's leaving the next week anyway.
Right,
but
he was leaving either way. He played 72 games last year, so it's like he hasn't played a full season, and he's shown a lot, right? But you got to be careful. They was asking that question on the day that they had to cut someone, eat $15 million of someone who fell off the face of the earth for him. So it is a delicate dance. And as I said before, you just have to be right. That's what you have to be. And I would like Vinny to be here, but they're under no obligation to sign Vinny. They control him. Now, what you can do is don't go to arbitration, just offer like 2 or 3 years. I mean, do they need to? Would you give him a 10-year deal? No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't. No,
I wouldn't give any. I wouldn't have given stinking Tatis a 10-year deal. Some of these organizations, that the Padres are going to rue that someday. Okay.
The Braves are giving long-term deals out to their players. But he made his debut June 28th last year.
Yeah, so it's not even.
So you've got less than a year of service time right now. Look,
but it's all been good.
Yeah, he's ultimately, I think, if Prado's going to be a part of this team, then he would probably be a DH on this team, even though they have like 4 DHs on this team with Olivares
that's what they had
MJ
with everyone. They had with Witt and Dozier and all these guys. No one had a position.
Yeah.
Am I a second baseman, shortstop, third baseman?
No, you got position versatility is great, which means you don't really play one position well.
You need 1 or 2 of those guys, not 6 of them.
Right. I think it would be, again, I'd be perfectly fine with them signing Vinny long term. From the Royals' standpoint, I do wonder if they view it and go, we got him for 3 years. We got him in arbitration for 3 more years. What's the point of signing him right now? Because I think he's interested.
Yeah, you want to make him happy. Yeah.
But he's saying the other team is not interested. The other side is not interested in me, or not interested at the money that I would like to get.
Right.
That I'm not going to sign, 10 years, $40 million. Right. So there's 2 sides to them wanting me as well. We'll talk with Adam Teicher, football next.
Dysfunction affects many men in America today, but it's not just the man who's affected, it's also often their partners, because ED is
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you. Drake, we head up until 2 o'clock. We'll talk with Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, coming up at noon. Right now, let's talk some NFL football, the Chiefs, and around the league as well. From ESPN, our Chiefs insider, Adam Teicher, joining us here in the zone. Adam, what's up, man? How are you, sir?
Good, Jason. How you doing today?
I am doing just fine. Looking forward to talking some football with you after baseball and basketball conversation in the first hour. So let's talk some NFL football. Adam, we'll start with this. While Chiefs OTAs are going on, we'll get into that here in just a little bit. But the NFL owners approved the Thursday Night Football flex scheduling. What do you make of this decision by the owners that Thursday Night Football can be flexed weeks 13 to 17, maximum of 2, with a window of 28 days minimum to flex a team out of or into Thursday Night Football?
Yeah, well, what it means is we're going to see the Chiefs flexed into another Thursday Night Football game, I predict, from one of those games, week 13 through 17. So they can max out their national TV or their primetime appearances. So I think that's probably what that means for Chiefs fans. But don't buy your plane tickets yet for those weeks if you're going to a game, because there's a chance that it could happen, right? I think it was probably headed towards this. The league really likes that Thursday night TV package or streaming package, wants to make it work. So, it's that's the world we live in now in the NFL. All these primetime TV packages now have some type of flex deal in them.
Do you are you surprised at all that, knowing the national brand or at least national ratings that the Chiefs bring and interest that's there, and Patrick Mahomes, are you surprised the Chiefs voted for this? With the at least the thought process that you had of, well, the Chiefs are going to be a team that they may look to flex into Thursday Night Football, depending on whatever schedule that might be, and that's not even really just this year, Adam. That's next year, the year after that, the year after that. Yeah. Are you surprised that the Chiefs were one of the teams that voted in favor of it?
No, they love their primetime games, and since they're going to be a beneficiary of this, or you feel like they would at some point, if it's not this year, then no, I'm not really surprised. They like the night games. I think the Chiefs would probably play in primetime all their home games if they could. I think that'd be their wish. So no, it really doesn't surprise me. They voted. They've sort of indicated they would support this in the past. So I think. I'm not really surprised by it, no.
Yeah, that's my same reaction is, there's the player side of it, there's the business side of it, the front office, things like that, where the players are probably not excited about that, not excited about being flexed into a Thursday night game, even though Travis Kelce said he likes Thursday games because he likes the mini bye after playing that Thursday game. No matter the players feel, my opinion and takeaway is the same thing, that it's not surprising the Chiefs are in favor of it, because the more primetime games they get, the bigger brand the Chiefs can build, and they are, one of the 21 teams. The NFL put out the list of all the different countries that teams are opening up their, marketing areas, and the Chiefs have 3 different countries that they are a part of: Germany, Austria, and Mexico. That they're a part of with there are only 21 teams that are even a part of it, and the Chiefs have 3 different countries. So it's not a surprise to me that the Chiefs would vote for this, because more primetime games, more exposure, more Chiefs fans across the country, more apparel sales, all of that.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are in Switzerland now too. I think they're part of the group in Switzerland as well. So people are going to have to be waking up at 4 in the morning or whatever to watch these primetime games.
Yeah, you're right. They are in Switzerland. I totally missed that one. Yeah, it's Austria, Germany, Mexico, and Switzerland. Yeah. So 4 different countries. Yeah.
Let's go find some Chiefs fans over there. I'm sure there's a few.
Yeah, that's that's interesting. I don't know how I glossed right over that. New England, Tampa Bay, and the Chiefs, same group of 3 that's in Austria. With the Chiefs, Patriots, Bucks, Switzerland, Chiefs, Patriots, Bucks as well. Lots of teams in Mexico, a number of teams in the United Kingdom, but the Chiefs not a part of the United Kingdom. So that's it's interesting in terms of that. But yeah, the flex scheduling comes out, and it's Andrew Brandt put out. Gosh, I think it was maybe earlier this month or maybe even last month and said, here's how it's going to go with flex scheduling. And I think he nailed it. Said, here's how it's going to go. They're going to put this out there at this owners meeting to get all of the initial negative reaction out there. They're going to table it to the next owners meeting. Then they're going to quietly approve it once all the negative reaction has been out there. And then, it's going to be approved and people are just going to go about their business. And that is exactly what happened. It's crazy.
He was right, but they did sweeten the deal a little bit.
That is true.
From 15 days advance notice to 28 days. So it is going to be maybe a little more palatable that way than it otherwise would have been, but still going to be hardship on some people, no doubt.
And just for, housekeeping, the Thursday night game in week 1, that's not a part of a Thursday night where a team could have, a maximum now of 2 Thursday night games. That's not a part of that, right, of that Thursday night package?
No. It counts as one of the Chiefs'
prime time
appearances.
Okay.
Yes, it counts in that regard, but no, it does not count as a second Thursday night game. So the Chiefs could get a third Thursday night game. They could get flexed into one, although, some of their late season games I'm sure are protected games.
Yeah.
So that Bengals game I know is a protected game. I think the Bills game is a protected game. So, the Chiefs are running out of games to flex late in the season. So it may not happen, at least not this year.
Yeah, because they got a Monday night game because it's week 13 to 17. So they've got a Christmas Day game. They've got the Bills and the Bengals. They've got Sunday night with the Packers and Monday night with the Patriots. So it may not work this year for the Chiefs, but no doubt they'll be one of the teams on top of the list to flex into that Thursday night. And it makes sense because, look, the NFL is trying to increase the value of their TV deals, and they want to make sure their TV partner is taken care of because the next time it comes up for Thursday night games, they want Amazon to continue to bid again, or the next whatever platform network might be. But if they're just giving crap games on Thursday night to whoever it is, and it's like, here, you can have the scraps. It's the NFL. You're fine. You can just get the scraps here. The next time it comes up, they may not be able to maximize that if a team or if a, network or whatever. It's like, hey, this isn't really what we're looking for. And Amazon, when the Chiefs and Chargers, that was the first ever Thursday night Amazon Prime game. And that night they had the largest single day subscription that they've ever had in their history was that night. So it obviously makes sense, but they're taking care of Amazon on this one and their TV partners to make sure that they can maximize that TV deal the next time it comes up.
Yeah, and you just wonder, okay, what would their numbers have been had they not had the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes and an attractive rival in the Chargers? What if they'd had, Houston versus Chicago game on there? I mean, what would their numbers have been then? So, that just shows you what the NFL's trying to do with this package.
Adam Teicher is our guest from ESPN. All right, the voluntary OTA is going on yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We won't get to see like different players or anything like that until tomorrow. Anything you'll be looking for when you head out there, and we'll hear from Andy Reid and others after their practice is over, but at least a glimpse of some of the players on the field. Anything you'll be looking for tomorrow when you get a chance to go out there and actually see them again in a uniform?
Yeah, you always put your eye on the rookies and the top draft picks just to make sure they can walk and chew gum at the same time. Make sure the Chiefs didn't make some huge mistake here that this guy can't do some basic stuff. So I put my eye on them, and some of them at least you can't tell a whole lot because you remember it's just shorts and T-shirts. It's not there's no pads or hitting or anything like that. I'll watch how they use their wide receivers and what's kind of the pecking order there and what are they asking of Rashee Rice and all that. And so, that's another thing. Will FAU be back? Will Felix be back playing? Or my sense is it's still a little bit too soon for him, but he may be out there doing a little more than he did last time, so we'll see. What's their rotation at those edge rusher? Again, it's not real football, but they try to mimic as closely as they can that. So what's their rotation? How are they using those guys? So those are some basic things I'll be looking at for sure.
Will you get to see like any team drills where not just individual or calisthenics and warm-ups and things like that? Because I'm interested as to, first team, we're told that, Donovan Smith is the starter at left tackle. That's the way they're viewing it, and Juwan Taylor on the right side. But how often does Juwan Taylor go to the left side? Is it second team is Juwan Taylor? Does he stay over on the right side? Is it just Donovan Smith? That would be of interest to me if you guys are out there at that time and able to even see what the rotation might be at left or right tackle.
Yeah, no, we're out there the whole practice. I mean, it's just the one practice this week, but we're out there the whole thing, so we'll be able to see that kind of thing, no doubt. And, my sense is right now that Juwan Taylor's a right tackle. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean if there's an injury or something, they wouldn't move him over there. But I think at this point, I'd be surprised to see him getting a lot of work at left tackle. Now, the Chiefs do move some guys around from time to time. And so you might see a little bit of that, but I don't know that that's going to be the backup plan. We'll see. I mean, it certainly could develop that way, but I think right now it's in their best interest to plug him in on the right side and say, go to it, and this is your job now. So we'll see how they handle it. But he may get some work over there, but I wouldn't expect a lot.
Yeah, and sort of marrying those two things of the rotation and then also watching some of the rookies. Do you think Wanya Morris is going to be a guy who specifically is on the right side, or will he maybe be a guy that moves right, left, and just trying to get as much of whether it's the playbook or just getting acclimated into the NFL and honing some of those skills? Do you expect him to be, playing at maybe both the right and left side during practices, or will they just stick him on one side and say, this is what you're going to try to learn?
Well, he was mostly on the left side during rookie camp a few weeks ago, although he did play some on the right side. So I would think he's going to be moving around as well. And, if you're the Chiefs, I think you want to find out whether he's ready to be your top backup tackle, both sides, So I think with him, I think he will move around a little bit, that you'll see him doing a little of both. Maybe not in the same practice, though. That, he may be one day he's one thing and another day he's the other position. So right now we can't see, the Chiefs don't let us in just to one a week for this week, next week, and the following week. And then we get into all three when they have the mini camp in the middle of June. So we'll be able to see more then. So you don't want to make too many conclusions. You don't want to come to too many conclusions off what you see in one day, because there may have been they may have been doing something completely different with a guy on a day that you were not allowed in.
That's a good point. Adam Teicher is our guest from ESPN, and I'm guessing if Chris Jones was there, we probably would have seen some pictures with the social media that put all the different pictures out of different players showing up and around practice. I'm guessing because it's been part of the conversation, if Chris Jones was there at voluntary, he would be one of those, but that's certainly an assumption I'm making. But have you heard anything one way or another? If we'll find out tomorrow for sure, but one way or another, if he did show up to the voluntary part of it?
Yeah, I've not heard, but he wasn't around last year, and he he's not a guy who's been around a lot the last 2-3 years for these workouts. So and it certainly last year in particular didn't appear to affect him at all. So
I think he's fine.
I don't maybe you don't want Chris Jones here. Whatever he's doing this time of year, keep it up. But, no, I have not heard one way or the other, but, we'll find out for sure tomorrow.
Yeah, that would be interesting if he shows up and, Andy, what are you doing here? Leave, okay? I want you to do the same thing you did last year and the year before that. Just keep doing that. You're not going to forget how to play football by being here. Plus, I mean, there's so many guys on the does Chris Jones need the reps, or does Keandre Coburn, or even Turk Wharton returning from the ACL injury and things like that? I think Chris Jones is going to be fine. Other guys can certainly use the reps and figuring those things out. So I know it's been a conversation that's been going on the last week or so about these voluntary OTAs and Chris Jones, but I don't. I've mentioned it a couple times just as sort of a sidebar, but I don't find it to be that big of a deal either way. if he's there or if he's not. Certainly, if he's not there, I don't find it to be a big deal at all. Adam Teicher is our guest from ESPN. Adam, we'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll continue our conversation with you. I want to get into a number of things that are out there, just in general views of the roster and some other things. And the ESPN GOATs that they put out, I thought it was interesting. A couple of and this was done a year ago. They refreshed it with the passing of Jim Brown. So they brought it back. And so reading that again, I thought it's interesting. We'll get into that a little bit. And then how stacked is the AFC in quarterbacks? We know it is, but a website that has an idea or at least some evidence of just how stacked one side of the conferences are in quarterback. We'll do that coming up next. Adam Teicher, Chiefs Insider from ESPN. More right after this.
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810 WHB.
So you're looking to unwind after a long day or celebrate with friends. You want music.
Chiefs Insider from ESPN. Adam, we look at this Chiefs team. We look at what they've done in the offseason. NFL.com has the best rosters in the NFL, or most complete, I guess, the way that they're ranking them 1 through 32. And a year ago, when we talked about rosters, Adam, and what the Chiefs roster was, without Tyreek Hill, there was a big unknown of what they would be, and it was almost like, well, they may not have the most complete team, but they've got Patrick Mahomes. They've got guys who can make up for some deficiencies that are there. Now, after a year of drafting and free agency and another draft that happened, after the Tyreek Hill trade, 2 drafts, 2 free agency periods that have taken place, they have, as voted, the number 2 most complete roster in the NFL behind only Philadelphia, the 2 Super Bowl champions. And that's not as simple, Adam, as just saying, well, those guys played in the Super Bowl, so therefore they're going to have the most complete rosters. That's not necessarily the case. I do find it of interest that this time a year ago, they were in the top 5, top 10, but they weren't viewed as like a really complete roster. It was Chargers and Bills and, some of those teams and Bengals, what the money they spent on their offensive line a year ago. Those were the teams, and I think it's interesting that a year later, the Chiefs are sitting there at number 2 in one of the most complete teams, and sort of a tip of the cap and an acknowledgement of what's gone on over the last 14 months since they traded Tyreek Hill?
Yeah, there were a lot of question marks. There were question marks this time last year in the secondary. You didn't know, certainly didn't know what Jalen Watson would have become, and you didn't know that Josh Williams was ready to do some of the things he did when he was a rookie, and Trent McDuffie. So, there were some questions last year, but, I have some questions this year. I mean, I think they're in good shape, and I still think the Chiefs are good enough to get where they want to go. But I wonder a little bit. I mean, wide receiver, for instance. So, okay, we've talked about this. I like their depth. I think they've got a lot of good players there, but they don't have that proven top-end guy. And so last year, even though they lost Tyreek Hill, at least they had Juju Smith-Schuster, and you had some reasonable expectation for what the Chiefs got out of him. And going into the season, I think that was probably a season we all kind of expected out of him. 75, 80 catches, something like that. Not a ton of yards, but that's not generally what his game has been. So, but this year, I don't know. I mean, Tony, certainly the Chiefs think that Kadarius Toney could develop into that kind of guy, and maybe they're right. Maybe he will. But so I'm just wondering about that spot a little bit. And then you look at the edge rusher. They in effect traded Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap for Charles Omenihu and Anudike Uzomah. Is that a good trade? I think it will be for the Chiefs, but you don't know. You don't know how either guy's going to do. One's a rookie, another guy's coming into a new system. I think the transition will be okay for him, but you just don't know until you see it. And then offensive tackle. The Chiefs traded Orlando Brown and Andrew Wiley for Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor. I think that'll be a good trade for the Chiefs, but you just don't know. Donovan Smith didn't have a very good year last year. Now, maybe there were some good reasons for that in terms of his injuries. We've talked, he's only 29, even though he seems like he's like 69. He's only 29. And he should bounce back. And as long as he's healthy, he should have a good year. And I think Jawan Taylor is one of those guys that's going to blossom for the Chiefs. He's heading into that kind of his career. So I think they'll be okay there too, but you just don't know until you see it develop. So I do think there are some question marks in their roster, but doesn't mean it's not good enough to for the Chiefs to get back to another Super Bowl for sure.
Yeah, the wide receiver conversation has taken place all offseason and continues, and some of the websites, ESPN, with the biggest questions or moves or something like that for different teams, and it was, Chiefs, wide receiver. Do they make a trade for a wide receiver? Things like that. And the way I've sort of viewed it, Adam, is, the issue at wide receiver for me is that it's more of a duo type deal. It's a Travis Kelce and then somebody else, because Stephon Diggs is in Buffalo and they went out and got Dalton Kincaid. They traded up for him. They say they're going to use him like Travis Kelce. I think that is incredibly surface level of what kind of player Travis Kelce is, than just, we're going to utilize him these different ways. Okay, does he and Josh Allen have the same connection that Kelce and Mahomes has, to where they can adjust routes on the fly and they both know what's happening, and all of a sudden Kelce's wide open and you're like, why aren't you guarding Kelce? Well, they were. They had a defense set up for that, but he adjusted along with Patrick Mahomes. It's what they can do together that other teams, and just saying, well, we drafted this guy to be kind of like a Travis Kelce. So you've got a Diggs and Kincaid. In Cincinnati, they've got T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. You've got Allen and Herbert and now Johnston in L.A. with the Chargers, Hill and Waddle in Miami. The issue for me at wide receiver is, when it was Kelce and Hill, if you had Kelce out for a game or two, well, you still had Tyreek Hill. If you had Tyreek Hill out for a game or two, you still had Kelce. This is one to where that duo of a high-level player, if he's missing a game or two, who steps up. And Noah Gray and Forts and those guys aren't in a position to where they can just fill in and say, well, if Noah Gray's got to fill in for a year, he's going to get 800 and 900 yards receiving. That's just not something that I think is part of reality with Noah Gray, and especially when we're talking about things that Kelce can do on the field with Patrick Mahomes. That to me is the wide receiver part that I like the depth that they have. I think Tony can grow into that guy. They've got different players that can step up and make plays, but do they have that, high-end guy that if T. Higgins goes down, Jamar Chase is there. If, Keenan Allen goes down, then you've still got Mike Williams and Johnston. I think I said Allen and Herbert, but Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Johnston now that's there. That I just don't know who that next guy up, if you want to call it that, when the premier playmaker is out.
Yeah, and certainly having Kelce does change the tone of that discussion a little bit. I did see a ranking, positional ranking. Now this was just wide receivers, not all receivers. So Kelce wasn't part of this, but I think the Chiefs were like 25th or 26th at wide receiver in their positional ranking. I think that's a little. I think that's a little low.
I think it's a little low from the depth standpoint, but I think people are looking at it and saying, "Where's your top end guy?" And if your top end guy is Tony, that played like 20% of the snaps last year, then we'll see.
Yeah. So I think the Chiefs are better than 25th or 26th in the league at the position, but I just wonder a little bit, what does it look like if Tony gets hurt and misses a big chunk of the season like he has each of the last 2 years? And what happens if he just doesn't develop the way the Chiefs hope he will, or he's not ready for that yet? So I don't know. I mean, I wonder a little bit. Who's the guy then? So we don't think it's going to be MVS. That's just not who he's going to be. He might have a game, like the AFC Championship game. He'll give you a game like that every now and then, but I don't think you can count on him to do that for you every week and be a number one guy and give you those kind of numbers. So it's going to have to be somebody else. And at this point, I just don't know who it's going to be. Visiting
with Adam Teicher from ESPN. I had mentioned that the Jim Brown passes and ESPN brought back the GOATs at every position and the number one guy that was voted and then honorable mention and then also receiving votes. And as I was going through, and I'm like, okay, this is only going to be retired players because everybody on there was retired, was no longer playing. There wasn't an active player on the list, like quarterback Tom Brady, retired. Tight end was Gronk, retired. And then I got down to defensive tackle, and Aaron Donald was voted as the greatest of all time. So I'm like, okay, well, then active players can be a part of it. Justin Tucker was the greatest kicker of all time. Okay, active players can be a part of it. I bring that up because, at tight end, Gronk was number one, and then Tony Gonzalez and Kellen Winslow were the honorable mentions, but then also receiving votes were Mike Ditka, Antonio Gates, Ozzie Newsome, and Shannon Sharp. I thought it interesting that not even one vote for Travis Kelce because current play. I just thought, well, they're not including current players, so Kelce wouldn't even get a vote in the greatest tight end of all time. But, I mean, if he's not number one, he's certainly somewhere in the top 7 of all time, I would guess.
I think that's an oversight on somebody's part there because, he has to be in that discussion. I mean, he's to some extent, he's kind of revolutionized the position with the different things he can do. So, absolutely, I'm with you on that one.
Adam Teicher from ESPN is our guest. We've talked about the AFC and the quarterbacks that are in the AFC, but the top 6 quarterback, Pro Football Focus put out their top quarterbacks as starters 1 through 32. So the projected starter of each team. The top 6 quarterbacks, according to their rankings, are in the AFC, and the top 7 of 8 are in the AFC. Mahomes, Allen, Burrow, Herbert, Rodgers, Lamar were the top 6 quarterbacks. Then Jalen Hurts, then Trevor Lawrence. I don't remember a time when it was ever this lopsided, especially when a time where the quarterback position is so important and viewed and understood as important as it is. we've always viewed the quarterback position as important, but even 80s and 90s, it was nice to have a quarterback, but the Cowboys weren't winning the Super Bowl because Troy Aikman was amazing. He was a part of it. He played his role and he was really good, but he wasn't, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL that was putting up 4,000-yard, 5,000-yard seasons and, 40, 50 touchdowns. And we're seeing the importance of quarterback now that to have it be this lopsided is just it's incredible to see all of those. I would probably put Hurts a little bit higher up, but even if you do that, you're still talking about 7 of the top 8, no matter where Hurts ends up in there, that are all on one side of the conference.
Yeah, it's just amazing that when there's been a can't-miss quarterback, and I'm mainly, I guess, thinking of Justin Herbert. Not Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. When there's been a Trevor Lawrence, or maybe I'll even throw Joe Burrow into that. I mean, I think everybody thought he was going to be a good player when he came out. It's been an AFC team with the number 1 pick, and the AFC teams have just done a better job out-hustling their the NFC teams for quarterbacks. Mahomes is a prime example of that. Maybe Josh Allen to a lesser extent. The Bills were smarter than everybody when they did that, and the Cardinals picked Josh Rosen. You remember?
Yeah.
They could have had Josh Allen, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, or do I have that backwards? Did Allen go before?
I think Allen. I'd have to look, but there were 4 quarterbacks, or maybe 5 quarterbacks because Lamar went number 32. The Ravens traded back in, but I think Allen went ahead of Rosen if memory serves. But they also came back around and took Kyler, with the number 1 pick.
Yeah, and then Arizona, or not Arizona, Chicago. I mean, they picked. They had the 2nd pick of the draft, traded up, and they picked Mitch Trubisky instead of Watson or Mahomes. So there's the San Francisco trade for Trey Lance is not working out. So it's just amazing how everything seems to have worked out, and these guys have developed on the AFC side, and the NFC. It's just bad luck and bad development and. Bad drafting. I mean, it is kind of a crazy phenomenon.
And then you add Aaron Rodgers to the AFC this year. Which is it's a little bit of a surprise because if Rodgers was wanting to be traded, I don't know that I would want to go from the NFC to the AFC if I'm a quarterback and wanting to battle all of those quarterbacks in the AFC that are already there. I mean, it's just. It's crazy. And that's not, by the way, it's not even including Tua that went before Justin Herbert. And if he's healthy, he's a pretty darn good quarterback, and he's got some guys to throw the ball to, and he can put up some big numbers. He did that last year until the concussions got him. But certainly he would be in the mix of some of the, top 10, top 11, 12 quarterbacks in the league. But, it has been fascinating. And it is another sort of example of if the Chiefs had got it wrong, like if history changes and the Broncos don't trade ahead of the Chiefs and get Paxton Lynch, if the Chiefs take Paxton Lynch there, are they taking and trading up and getting, Patrick Mahomes, the next year? But just how history works, that if the Chiefs were not in this position, it would be such a different conversation. Like we wouldn't really even be focusing on okay, so who's the top wide receiver, the wide receiver depth, or we'd be focusing maybe a little. I should say we'd be focusing a lot more on that because it would have to make up for the fact that Patrick Mahomes would not be on the Chiefs. He'd be somewhere else, and they would have a quarterback that's maybe middle of the pack or maybe a little bit better. That everything around him is going to have to be perfect, especially now getting out of the AFC is a murderer's row. It's a gauntlet.
Or what if the Bears had drafted Mahomes that year?
Yeah, true.
What if would the Chiefs have traded up for Watson, or would Alex Smith still be their quarterback? I mean. Yeah, it's crazy how one thing can change history, but the Chiefs wouldn't trade it for sure.
No, not at all. Adam Teicher from ESPN. Adam, you're the man. Really appreciate the time as always, sir. We will we'll talk next week. We'll see what tomorrow brings with the OTAs and hearing from the different Chiefs, but we will talk next week. Adam, you're the man. Appreciate it, sir.
Good stuff, Jason. We'll talk to you next time.
All right, there's Adam Teicher from ESPN joining us here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, presented by Google Fiber. We appreciate Adam each and every week joining us. We certainly will talk to him next week as then another round of OTAs and things like that will be taking place. But tomorrow, get an opportunity to see the guys out there with the different reporters. I didn't know if it was you get out there and just watch the warm-ups or they're out there for the entire practice. But, yeah, we'll be watching to see what left tackle, right tackle, what the rotation looks like, wide receiver rotation, defensive end rotation, certainly safety rotation. What does Mike Edwards look like? Is he filling in and playing ahead of Brian Cook, or is it Brian Cook and Justin Reed and Edwards and Bush are the guys that are filling in afterwards? I certainly think Bush would be in the backup part of that. But so we'll see what some of those things will bring tomorrow. And as he said, Wanya Morris working out at left tackle in the rookie minicamp. But is that because, you don't have Prince Tega Winogo and Donovan Smith and Jawan Taylor there at the rookie minicamp? So, hey, Wanya, you're going to be working at left tackle here. But also just simply getting him acclimated to the NFL. You might play right tackle, you might play left tackle. We're just simply seeing where you can fit, what you can do, and the places that, you're going to have to get used to. You're going to have to learn, man. In the NFL with the Chiefs, they're going to put the best 5 out there. So figure out what position might be best for you. So we'll see what happens tomorrow with the OTAs, just and see and some of those things. Again, Chris Jones, whatever, there or not there. But we'll hear from the Chiefs. But as we were talking about, the most complete rosters that NFL.com having the Chiefs listed as the second most complete roster. And I think last year they were 5th or 6th or something like that in there. And it's not even counting, because if they were just simply 1 or 2 every year, because it's like, well, they have the most complete roster because Patrick Mahomes counts as 20 players. And then after that, you take the best final 33 players of the Chiefs after Patrick Mahomes, and you say the best 1 through 53 because Mahomes is worth 20 different players. It's not the case. They're looking at the overall roster because last year they were like 5th or 6th. And we know they've had, a good roster. Even without Tyreek Hill, they were able to get deeper and younger and cheaper, and they did that in the secondary last year and addressing that with a lot of numbers. And this year they've had to redo their tackle spot, continuing to redo the wide receiver spot, the edge spot, linebacker, because, their linebackers now, like the Chiefs have gone, if there's one position that seems to be overhauled at a higher magnitude from a couple 3 years ago to now, it's Wilson and Hitchens at the linebacker spot to now Bolton, Gay, Drew Tranquill, and Leo Chanel. Those 4 guys at the linebacker spot. It's not a premium position, but it is a spot to where it's nice to have cheaper players that are younger, and you're not spending $18, $19 million against the cap for guys who are inferior players. And that's just one area of that they've gotten better, of the overall depth of how you put a roster together. The secondary with L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie, and you throw in Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams, and Juan Thornhill walks, but they drafted Brian Cook last year. So Justin Reed and Brian Cook, and they signed Mike Edwards, and they signed Deion Bush, so they've got depth there. The defensive end spot, you trade Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap, not literally, but you move Frank Clark and Carlos Dunlap out. They don't re-sign currently. And you go and you draft FAU and you sign Charles Omenihu, and you've gotten better at that spot. Defensive tackle. It's not great that you lose Colin Saunders. I liked Colin Saunders a lot, but if Colin Saunders is signing somewhere else and you say, well, you're getting Turk Wharton back with a torn ACL, that certainly helps. And if Coburn can play at a higher level or close to shouldn't take much of a higher level than Noddy. Maybe Noddy can rebound from the season that he had last year. But you're better at that spot too. It's not even, they had Chris Jones last year, and obviously they'll have Chris Jones this year. But just looking at where they were a year ago and so many questions, yeah, there are some questions on this roster, but there are so many more answers, it seems like, on this roster than there was a year ago. Yes, the tackle spot, but we had a question about, is it going to be Andrew Wiley? Andrew Wiley finished the season, but can he play right tackle over the course of a full season? He had been practicing. He had had a full off season of actually working at right tackle for the first time in his career. What would that mean for him? Orlando Brown Jr., new contract, not new contract, is he playing on the franchise tag? All of those things from a year ago, signing to a long-term deal. Is it only going to be 1 year? Yeah, there was a question about what the long-term play was at left tackle, but there wasn't really a question about who was going to play left tackle last year. Maybe depth-wise, but who was going to play left tackle last year? And I have a huge question about wide receiver without Tyreek Hill. Well, we know that was answered. The offense without Tyreek Hill was answered. They were number 1. They won a Super Bowl. The running game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, what's that going to look like? Well, they have an answer now. It's Isaiah Pacheco. This time last year, they're going to re-sign Jerick McKinnon? Well, we know they have Jerick McKinnon now. So from May 23rd of 2022 to May 23rd of 2023, they have a more complete roster. They have more answers that are there, and their questions are so much more, they're of a smaller magnitude of the questions than some of the other teams across the league have, because they're trying to catch the Chiefs. The Chiefs have won 2 of the last 4 Super Bowls. They're still the premier team in the AFC, and other teams' questions are, can this guy do this? Can this guy do that? To get above the Chiefs. Where the Chiefs are already at this level, everybody's trying to catch them, and if they continue to improve, then somebody else has to improve by leaps and bounds to get there. Did the Bengals improve their offensive line? They believe so. Jonah Williams wasn't great. I think they've gotten better at left tackle. Orlando Brown over Jonah Williams. And if he will accept the assignment to go to right tackle, I think they'll get better there over Lyle Collins. But again, we've heard Mitch Schwartz and other offensive linemen talk about it, that you can't just simply say, right tackle, left tackle, well, you go play over there, you go play there. You played left tackle, now play right tackle. It's perfectly fine. But, as some people will tell you, it's like, okay, well, now go brush your teeth with your left hand or right hand, whichever, dominant hand you have. Now switch that. So it isn't as easy as just, moving guys around. I think they'll be better at left tackle. I think it's somewhere in the middle from what the Bengals think they got and what the Chiefs think the Bengals got. Some Chiefs fans think the Bengals got a guy who's just going to be a wet paper bag at left tackle. And the Bengals feel like they got Jonathan Ogden. Or some fans think that, there it is, got him, Orlando Brown. It's all solved. All the issues are gone. Well, one of the security blankets the Chiefs had was Jerick McKinnon there in the backfield to help out in pass protection, and Samaje Perine is really good, and he walked to Denver. So they lose that security blanket. So, yeah, they've got some questions. They've got better at that spot, but they have huge questions at tight end. Last year they had T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and then Hunter Henry, who had a pretty good season. Now they don't have that. They have Irv Smith. People thought that maybe the Bengals were going to get Kincaid or Meyer or Darnell Washington. They got none of the above. They got Irv Smith, so they took a step back from that standpoint. Other, players. And a year from now in this spot, as we're looking at the competition for the Chiefs in the AFC, a year from now, if T. Higgins needs a contract and Joe Burrow got his contract and Jamar Chase next year is up for his extension, and you're talking about how many millions of dollars a year in cash that you might be giving those three with, the Browns as the owner of the Bengals. Mike Hilton's in his last year. Does he walk? What's Trey Hendrickson going to do? They already lost a tight end. So, what do they do at running back then? Because Joe Mixon may not even be on the team this year. So, yeah, there's some questions about the decisions they have to make. Awuzie, their best cover corner, final year of his contract. Do they re-sign him? Do they lose their top 2 corners in Awuzie and Hilton because they're keeping their wide receivers together? That's where you got to figure those things out and pay the right guys. And I think when we're talking about, a quarterback like Patrick Mahomes that gets as much money as he does, there are decisions that have to be made, and that decision was made last year with Tyreek Hill. And then who are you paying moving forward? You can still pay other players premium money. You cannot pay, and I'll restate it, you cannot pay good players great player money. That's what, Charvarius Ward and maybe not to the level of Juan Thornhill, but you have the plan in place to replace that guy. Juan Thornhill, he was going into the last year. They draft Brian Cook. Juan Thornhill walks. Brian Cook, plug and place. You're not paying $8-9 million for a safety when you're already doing that with Justin Reed. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling, wrap up this hour. We'll talk with Les Norman coming up at noon. Todd Lebo rejoins in the 1 o'clock hour. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Twitch.
Thank you to Adam Teicher from ESPN joining us as the Chiefs OTAs going on yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We will hear from the Kansas City Chiefs tomorrow. Almost said Adam. Well, we heard from Adam Teicher today, but Andy Reid, not Adam Reid, Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, and we'll see who else goes to the podium tomorrow for the Kansas City Chiefs. We'll talk some baseball with Les Norman coming up at noon. Get his thoughts on the Royals and the decision that was made to DFA Hunter Dozier. That's been the story of yesterday. Also, Bobby Witt sliding down to the 6 hole in the lineup. Nick Pratto moving up to leadoff. What that may mean for Les Norman and some other things. You know, last week, Les Norman had brought up as we were going to break with Les of, Salvi and maybe trading or some things like that, and not very popular opinion. So we may get into that with Les Norman as well. 913-912-4810 is the text line to join us to be a part of the show today and weigh in with whatever is on your mind. Text says, the end-of-the-year receivers will be Rice and Ross and Tony. Says, top-end guy is Justin Ross. Man, there are a lot of people that still believe in Justin Ross. We'll see. We'll see. I think Rashee Rice is the guy that they drafted to be Justin Ross. Text says they have to give 28 days notice to flex to Thursday, a one-year trial. It was 15 days, and they amended some of those things. And Andrew Brandt, by the way, nailed it because he retweeted yesterday something from a month ago that he tweeted out and said, this is how it's going to go. The owners' meeting's taking place right now. They are putting out the information that we might be flexing Thursday night games. We're going to vote on it. We're going to look at it. We're going to talk about it to get the reaction of everybody being negative about it, pushback, the players' pushback, all of that. And then they're going to table it. And then a month later, they're going to pass it. It's going to be quieter, and people are just going to go about their business. And that's exactly what happened. Is the information came out. It was negative. Players reacted. Patrick Mahomes tweeted about it. I didn't see a Mahomes tweet yesterday about the owners passing the flexing Thursday Night Football, which is, strategy, but it's also about the owners and the NFL caring about their broadcast partners over maybe some of the players. And, we talked about it yesterday going through the schedule that I just don't think the Chiefs are going to be flexed this year. We'll see what happens next year, but it is a very short window of week 13 to week 17, and the Chiefs in that time, every game they play in that time would not fall under the criteria of being flexed to Thursday night. They play Green Bay Sunday Night Football. That's not going to get flexed to Thursday night. It's already a nationally televised game. They play Buffalo 3:25 on CBS. That's going to be the game of the week, CBS, which will be protected. They play New England on Monday night. You're not flexing a Monday Night Football to Thursday night. They play Vegas on Christmas Day at noon. Well, that's part of the Christmas Day tripleheader. You're not moving that game away from Christmas Day to Thursday night. And then they play Cincinnati in Week 17, which is 3:25 CBS, which is a protected game. So it will not affect the Chiefs this year in games that are being flexed. The only way I guess it could affect the Chiefs this year is if they have an opponent that they're going to play the next week that gets a few extra days of rest, that they were going to play an opponent that was going to play on Sunday, and then that opponent plays Thursday the week before they match up, and then there's a few extra days. That would be the only way that would really impact the Chiefs, but I don't see it happening this year. But yes, a trial basis, because they put out the trial balloon to see what people would think. But yeah, so you've got a very limited window, week 13 to week 17, and you've got 28 days that you have to give notice. I don't know that there will be a game flexed this year into Thursday Night Football, unless they want to just for the sake of doing it to see how it will work out. What's the point of having it and approving it for a year or even a couple of years and then not actually doing it to see the logistics of how everything would work out, how the things would fall into place, what the travel, what the schedule would be like, fans, some of those things, what all of that would happen. I just wonder if there's going to be at least 1 week that they do it for the sake of doing it.
If they're going to do it, I'm surprised they even have a Thursday night game on the schedule. Just pick one when you get 28 days out. Yeah. Why even say it's going to be this? No, it's not. Just say, here's the night we're going to have a game. 28 days out, we'll tell you who it's going to be.
Yeah, it might be like week 16 or 17 moving in the future, and they say, look, week 16 and 17, we don't have a Thursday night game picked out. But a month before we get to week 16, so that would be, week 12, we're going to tell you what that Thursday night game is. Just like on look, Week 18 is all TBD. Nobody has any idea when they're playing Week 18. You're going to play Saturday, you're going to play Sunday, or you're going to play Saturday at noon, you're going to play Sunday night football. Everything's TBD in Week 18, and people are perfectly fine with that.
That makes so much more sense because if you do that, you're messing with 2 teams.
Yeah.
If you flex somebody out and somebody in, you're messing with 4.
Yeah.
So I don't understand why, if they're going to make it flexible, they even have a game in there.
Yep. Tex says, would we need to have Prime to watch Thursday Night Chiefs, or will we still get the local coverage on a network? That's still going to be local coverage on a network. And I believe that is a bidding process. I'd have to ask Mick Schaefer, because typically when it's going to be local, okay, if it's ESPN, it's ABC, but it's also ESPN on ABC with Monday Night Football. But some of those nationally televised that don't have, like the NFL Network, I believe would then be on the local affiliate of that particular team, which is KSHB. But I think the Thursday night, because that Chargers game, I think that was up for a bidding process to where the NFL, it was just whoever bid to be able to have that. So you'll still have the local coverage on a network. Nationally, though, you'll have to get Amazon Prime. And as I said to Adam Teicher there, the largest one-day sign-up for Amazon Prime was the Thursday game of Chiefs and Chargers. And it wasn't, locally Kansas City or, L.A. It was across the country. It was week 2 of the NFL season. It was one of the best matchups already. The Chargers were, one of the sexy picks to win the West, and the Chiefs didn't have Tyreek Hill, and they did what they did against Arizona, and this is the first Amazon Prime Thursday night. Well, across the country, it's, I want to watch that game. Fantasy football, gambling, things like that. And it was the largest one-day sign-up. Now, the next Thursdays would be the same thing, but locally, yeah, you would be able to watch that on a local channel. I'm just not sure which one that would be. 913-912-4810, 913-912-4810. Tex says, and talking about the Royals, says, let's bring back Moose and Haas. You know what? Kane in center. You know what? They should definitely bring back Hosmer. They need more first basemen on this team. They need more first basemen. Well, not really a DH because you got to hit to be a DH. But they need more guys that can play the corner. So Moose can play third, Hosmer play first, and therefore you can have Moose and Garcia and Witt that can play third. Nicky Lopez plays third. You've got Hosmer and Prado and Pasquantino that can play first, and they'll just field a team with third baseman and first baseman, and that's it. That'd be great. It'd be perfect. Texas is Bobby Bonilla still getting paid by the Mets? Yes, for another 8 years. Still getting $1 million a year every. Drake, is that July 1st or June? I think it's July 1st that he gets it. It's the first of the month.
I think it's only 2 or 3 more years.
Is it really?
I think it's coming to a close. I think Griffey has another year or 2 after that, and yeah.
Because it was always happy about, for whatever reason, I thought it was just going to be 2030 that Bonilla was finally going to be done being paid by the Mets. So yeah, it's always happy about. It's the first of the month. Bone Thugs and Harmony rapped about it. They had a great song about Bobby Bonilla. That's what they made it about. People don't realize that. I don't remember it. I just made it up. We'll talk with Les Norman. He is from Breaking the Norm. You hear him on 1510 ESPN Kansas City on Tuesdays. You hear him right here on Sports Radio 810 in the Zone on Tuesdays at noon. We'll talk with Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, talking some Royals baseball, Royals transactions, things like that. Coming up next with our man, Les Norman.
I'm here with Brad McGee from LBA Home Services. Brad, is this your plane?
Beauty, ain't she?
Shut the door, Todd. Walks in. Hey, you good? Yeah, I'm good. And then leaves without shutting the door. What are you, born in a barn? By the way, what's the origin of born in a barn? Why do people say that when you leave the door open? It was always when I was growing up, left the door open. What are you, born in a barn? Mom, you were there when I was born, I think. You know where I was born.
You always shut the barn door. You don't want the animals to get out.
Ah, that's a great. But if you were born in a barn, do you leave the door open? That's sort of the thing, is you left the door open. What are you, born in a barn? I don't know. I would guess that you would shut the barn door. By the way, Bonilla 2035.
I thought it was almost over.
Says July 1st, 2011 through July 1st, 2035. $1 million. He's getting $1 million a year, July 1st until 2035. One of our friends that is doing the same thing. It is Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. Les, is your $1 million check from the Royals, is that June 1st or July 1st? When do you get that deferred $1 million a year?
You know, there's a great song by Prince called Pop Life, and one of the lines of that movie was, do you put your $1 million check in someone else's box? And mine is just gone to someone else's box every year.
Is that right? Yeah, mine too. Mine too. It's I say Happy Bobby Bonilla Day, and I say Happy Pay the Mortgage Day for me. So it's the first.
Yeah, I think Todd Lebo, is he the kind of guy that uses the restroom with the door open? I mean, just doesn't care. Shut the door, man.
I don't. Who knows? I mean, is he the guy that pulls the pants all the way down to his ankles when he goes pee at the stall? I don't know.
That I don't know, and I don't want to know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to know that either. But I did have a coach in high school that did that. Grown-ass man sitting there at the stall, pants at his ankles. It's just weird.
Todd's just lucky we love him.
So now that we got that out of the way, my format here for segment one with Les, talk about using the restroom and a stall, pants around ankles. So that I can scratch that one out now that we got to the bottom of that, Les. So good to know. What's up, man? Where are you at? I know you're on the road somewhere.
Yeah, I'm on the road. We're getting ready to leave. Every year, the late Royals broadcaster Fred White owned a station in Russell, Kansas, KRSL, and his widow Barb still owns it. Son Joe still owns that station, and so every year we go out on the last day of school. Kids get out in the morning, and we have this huge baseball clinic. I mean, we could have 100, we could have 300 kids. We come out and they get like free hot dogs and drinks, and they go through this rotation of different positions, and the girls get with a local softball coach, and they get to do their stuff, and then we sign autographs. Today we get to go out to eat at the famed Merides restaurant right out on I-70 in Russell with a steak that's as big as a steak platter. It's huge, and that's just the breakfast steak. And so, I'm going to be taking Royals Hall of Famer Dennis Leonard and former Royals pitcher Al Fitzmaurice with me, and we're just going to spend the day out there, do the clinic tomorrow, and head back home. It's an annual thing.
That's very cool. So what part of the clinic are you, Les? Are you the hitting? Are you fielding? Outfield? What are you teaching and working with tomorrow?
Well, usually I'm the outfield guy, but John Mayberry isn't going to make it this year, and so he always does the hitting, of course. But I will do the hitting. Actually, Al Fitzmaurice, before he started pitching, it's kind of like a Tim Wakefield-esque thing, but without the knuckleball. But Fitzy was a really good infielder, and he could hit a little bit. And so he started off as a position player and then ended up pitching, and those are the right moves. He ended up pitching, I think, 10, 11 years in the big leagues with the Royals and the Indians. So he will handle the defensive position side. I'll do the hitting, and Dennis Leonard will teach people how to throw in the neck if you get on top of this plate.
He's going to teach the art of brushing them back. Little chin music.
No, he'll teach pitching, but you know, we love being with these kids and spending time with them and teaching them, and the people at KRSL. You know, Mike McKenna, the GM there, and then Barb when she gets a chance to, and Eric Stone, and all the great people at KRSL, man. I think this is like year 17 or something that we've done this. And, I mean, it's just an amazing time. But the funnest for me as I drive out there is that in all these years, I get to hear stories from, you know, in the past, it's been John Mayberry, and, boy, he's the master storyteller. But Dennis Leonard and Al Fitzmaurice, man, they just tell stories. And Fitzy is one of the funniest guys. He's got one of those great, sarcastic, funny, gentle senses of humor. And I just drive and laugh for 3.5 hours, and yeah, it's in there and back, so it's a great time.
And he typically looks like he just came from a Grateful Dead concert.
Yeah, and many people know this, but Fitzy's actually a really good singer, and he's fronted a band before, and he can play guitar, and he's quite talented, man.
Yeah, he's the jack of all trades. The art of brushing back. We're a little man is in machine pitch, but also you like to adjust the machine from time to time. Like, get off the plate, son. Yeah, just a little chin music. Get out of the way. It's not always going to be a strike. You got to head on a swivel, man. Watch out for in your ear, just to keep them ready. Get them ready for kid pitch, because that ball's going to go everywhere the first year of kid pitch.
If you want to get a kid ready for kid pitch during machine pitch season, then put the machine out there when it's misting and the machine gets the balls get a little bit damp, and then they're learning how to hit knuckleballs and sliders, and if they're still brave enough to stand in the box, then kid pitch ought to be a smooth adjustment.
Or get them a brand new baseball. What is it about pitching machines that a brand new baseball just doesn't do well with? Like, a brand new baseball just goes everywhere on a pitching machine. You got to scuff it up and do all these different things so you can get some consistency with it. You would think, hey, a brand new baseball, this is great. No, we had a game a couple of weeks ago where they had a brand new baseball that was being used, and it was like a fast pitch softball riser. Like, it would get closer to the plate and almost go up a little bit.
It's too much spin on it.
It's like, we need a different baseball, man. We keep adjusting the machine, but this thing keeps rising here. All right, it's not working. By the way, as the clinics and everything, I was thinking about that when you were talking about Fitzy and the different guys. I would guess that the pitchers would be more acclimated to be able to teach the hitting and fielding more than the hitters/fielders would be able to teach the pitching. Because if you're growing up and you're a pitcher, you're probably also a hitter and a fielder on your teams, throughout your life. Whereas if you're a fielder, doesn't necessarily mean you're ever going to pitch.
Right. And it's the interesting thing for me is that over the years, what I've learned is, pitchers are always trying to get hitters out. And so they learn what hitters do. And it's the same thing on the other side. When I was in AAA and hadn't been in the big leagues yet and was struggling, hitting like 220 or at best, I was sitting next to Tom Browning, the late Tom Browning, who, was a Reds pitcher and threw the no-hitter and broke his arm in 80 places that one time when he threw a pitch. But he was on the bench, and I said, hey, Brownie, you've been here a week and you watched me hit. What would you throw me? And he said, I'd throw you a fastball right down the middle. I'm like, that's kind of mean.
Yeah.
And he said, well, you're just getting yourself out. You're trying too hard. You're rolling over. And so then he went through big league pitcher, went through my mechanics and was telling me what I was doing right and wrong. And sure enough, the next at bat, guy threw me like an 84-mile-an-hour fastball. I rolled over it, grounded out to third. He said, okay, here's what I want you to do. The next at bat, I want you to try to break your bat on purpose. I said, well, I'm going to give away an at bat. He's like, I've been here a week. You're giving away all your at bats. It's not going to hurt anything. And so the guy lefty threw me a first pitch fastball about 94 inside corner, and I tried to break my bat, kept my hands down, didn't care about the result, and hit about a 430-foot bomb to left center field, and then ended up like 24 for my next 27 and got called up for the first time. Actually, right around this time, like May 28th or 29th was my call-up that year. So, yeah, it was a pitcher. That I've had great hitting coaches, but it was a pitcher that got me there and gave me good advice. And, it's interesting how when you spend your time in that chess match of trying to get the other guy out and competing, you can become an expert in the other facets of the game. It's amazing.
Yeah, that is fascinating because, that would make sense that you're going to be studying the hitters and the mechanics of the hitting. Whereas as a guy at the plate, if you're studying a pitcher, you're probably trying to study the release point. The spin out of the hand, things like that.
Yeah,
but you're not.
I gave up on that in high school.
But
it didn't work.
But you're not like studying here's his plant foot. Okay, here's how he's pushing off. Here's the tempo in which he's actually going. Is it shoulder first? Is he flying open with the shoulder? Like, you're probably not studying those particular things of a pitcher while you're trying to hit the guy.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. You're just getting launched at. So but it's fun. It's interesting. One of the things John Mayberry used to say was, a swinging bat is a dangerous bat. And even though John's not there, I'll step up for the first round when we do the clinic tomorrow. I'll jump in and I'll say, what's the first rule in hitting? And I mean, you've had guys and girls that have come to this clinic. They started when they were 8. and now they're actually out of the local high school and coming back to help us teach.
That's cool.
It's amazing and cool. And I said, what's the first lesson of hitting in honor of John Mayberry? And as in unison, the 50 kids that'll be in Group 1 will say a swinging bat is a dangerous bat because they just love John so much. So, yeah, it's pretty awesome and honored to do it. And I'm sure that's not what we were going to talk about the whole time, but,
No.
It's still a fun thing.
I feel like Bobby Witt is from the school of John Mayberry. Swinging bat is a dangerous bat because just swing. Just swing the bat.
Yeah.
No matter where the ball is, just swing the bat. Maybe you'll hit it. If it's in the other, batter's box, swing it.
That was the great. That's the Greg Luzinski hitting coach method of, hey, swing hard in case you hit it.
That's right.
What if he throws it inside, then hit it in the left field bleachers? Okay,
right.
Coach, good work.
What if he throws it at me? Then use your bat to protect yourself. Swing and keep it off. It's like a sword.
Oh, I love me some Ben Ogilvy, buddy. That's a great Bad News Bears reference.
Les Norman is our guest. He's from Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. All right, the Royals, they have DFA'd Hunter Dozier. Look, I don't think anybody should be rooting for somebody to lose their job.
Right.
He is well taken care of. He's going to make $30 million from the Royals in his career. They still owe him $15.6 million. So from that standpoint, yes, money is a part of it. But he did lose his job. What's your takeaway from hearing that they had to make room for Nicky Lopez back from the appendectomy? They decide it is the end of the road for Hunter Dozier.
It was the right move. We've been talking about it for a long time. I love Hunter Dozier. He's a great family man. He's a great man of faith. I share that faith with him. And you hate to see that for anybody. You don't want someone to lose their job, but statistically, it's the right thing to do. He is getting guaranteed money, which means when someone else picks him up, and they probably will when he reinvents his swing a little bit and just get some time off to clear his mind, he's going to be double dipping from somewhere. And so, baseball's a great thing in that situation. So, Hunter's going to be a proud guy. He's a hard-working guy, and he's just going to get after it. He's going to rebuild. He's going to go back to the ground floor. But I'm proud of the Royals because it is the move that they needed to make. If they're serious about is it just the downtown ballpark, or really are you trying to do what's right with the organization while you're planning to move the downtown ballpark? And I think that this move is the Royals showing, look, let's remember, John Sherman bought this club for a lot of money during COVID. Right before COVID. There's no rabbit's feet in your pocket during that. And then, once they start playing again, there's no fans in the stands. And so you can't argue with a move like this that John Sherman is, not committed to what you're supposed to be doing. And that's put a good product on the field. And it is the right thing. I'm proud of the Royals. I know we'll talk about the lineup shift a little bit too, but I don't love, when I say I love the move, I don't love the move for Hunter Dozier. You hate to see anybody. He has not failed. He's made it to the big leagues. He earned a contract where he's going to make, like you said, Jason, $30 million. So he has by no means failed. He just had a rough year. It's part of the game. But I'm glad the Royals made the move to show their commitment because it was the right move.
Visiting with Les Norman, Breaking the Norm. He's presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell him Les sent you. Here's Matt Quatraro yesterday before the game. He was asked about, moving different guys, or, Dozier is the one that gets DFA'd. Michael Garcia has an option, so, that might have been an easier move than just releasing Hunter Dozier. Here's Matt Quatraro weighing in on the Michael Garcia staying in Kansas City and Hunter Dozier being DFA'd.
Michael, in particular, has played well when he's here. He's obviously young, athletic. We think the world of him. But I just want to be clear that it wasn't a Dozier versus Michael type of thing, and it wasn't pitting two guys against each other. In totality, we just felt like this was the best decision.
And I get what he's saying with one guy versus the other, but the reality is it's Dozier versus Garcia or other, because you have to make room on the roster, right? And if you're deciding what's best for the club or even what's best for the future, to make room on the roster, somebody has to go. When Nicky Lopez is there, somebody has to go. Well, who has options? Well, Garcia's got options. A number of these guys have options that they could just simply move down to Omaha to make room for Hunter Dozier. So there is that element of Garcia versus Dozier, or Massey versus Dozier, or Prado versus Dozier. It may not be one specific guy, but Prado being moved into the one hole, Massey, who's, hitting the ball hard and, hits a home run and is playing second base, Lopez's back, Bobby's not going anywhere, Vinny's not going anywhere. And so you've got these different choices. One of the main choices would have been, okay, Garcia, he plays third, and, he's not crushing the baseball right now. So I do think there's an element of, you've got to make a decision. It would be easy to send Garcia down to Omaha to option him and just keep Dozier around and keep paying him the money. But it is a decision that the money didn't dictate what the best interest of the current club and who had more of a chance to be a part of the future club.
Yeah, look, why do you have the minor leagues? I mean, it was really fun going to the minor leagues and working hard and working your way up to the big leagues. But then when you get to the big leagues and realize you're at the highest level that you're at, all of a sudden you look behind you and there's 25 different outfielders wanting your job. So it isn't in a detrimental way, one on, Hunter Dozier versus the world, but somebody's always got to go. If you do not perform, unless you have a $300 million contract, if you do not perform, you're going to go. So it's in that case, it's not really Hunter Dozier against everybody because, we love him better than you. Mm-hmm. It's just whatever fits the roster the best and what they're going to do to adjust the lineup. So it's not just a factor of this versus that. It's he's not producing. We need to clear a roster spot if we're serious about rebuilding this team, and we're going to eat that money. It's about now you do that, and then you start shuffling things around and who's going to go where and who's going to get opted down. So it's not really someone versus anybody. I mean, look, it is a baseball team, and you want to be team-oriented, but the bottom line is somebody else can't hit for you and make it go to your stats. Somebody can't pitch for you and then adjust it to your stats. It's just one of those situations where it's tough on Dozier, but you got to do with your team what you need to do, and you got to make the right decision. So it's not a versus; it's just managing the team that you have.
What if they did that though, like NASCAR or racing, where if you start the race, but then a driver has to take over for you and they win, you get the win? If you get pulled from the game and somebody comes in and pinch hits and hits a home run, boom, that's on me. I got that home run. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
If you get ejected on the first pitch, if you get ejected the first pitch and someone has to come in and then a good stat goes for you and a bad stat goes for the other guy, that is the loophole in there. So, I probably would have been a big league hitter if I only got to play when people got ejected because then I wouldn't worry about failing.
There you go. That's right. Although there is a little bit of that because it's the inherited runner. So a pitcher leaves the game and another guy gives up a hit or something and that run comes around to score. It still counts for you. So I guess there's a little element
you earned
of
him
that.
Out there.
That's
you
a good
earned
yes.
him out in the field.
You absolutely did. Les Norman is our guest. Is there a lesson to be learned from, the Hunter Dozier, whether it's the timing of the contract, that he had a good year in 2019, had a lackluster year in 2020, and they thought, well, maybe it was an injury or something. Then they gave him the contract. Signing younger guys, is there a lesson maybe to learn, if at all? Maybe there's not. Maybe it's baseball. But is there something, a lesson to take away from the career and the arc of Dozier now that his time is done?
Yeah, I think so. A little bit. I mean, I still think Vinny P needs to be, and I know he's struggled a little bit, but I still think he's a long-term signing that needs to happen. And because he's dropped about 30, 35 points over the last couple weeks, he's not doing himself any favors in what that long-term amount could be. Maybe that goes down to 3 or 4 years versus a 6 or 7 that you and I talked about. But I mean, I think that there does need to be a lesson, especially with the new regime. I mean, we're seeing that they're not afraid to spend money. They're not afraid to eat money a little bit. And so I do think it's going to make them be a little bit smarter. But you're also, even though the older regime restructured Salvi's contract, tell me that Sal Perez shouldn't be one of the highest paid players in baseball. I mean, what do you think, Jason? Should Salvi, based on what he does, statistically, catching every day, all those things, back a couple years ago, should he have been one of those guys making $25 million a year?
Yeah, I mean, at a time, certainly would be worth it. But now
I'm
you're
not saying now, but
yeah,
he's
right.
older. But I mean, at the time, yeah, they restructured it, and he got paid. Trust me, Sal has generations of wealth that his family is going to enjoy. But they didn't extend him, and they could have, and then they for that kind of money, and then they gave Hunter Dozier. So sometimes it is a crapshoot, but I think that this will be a little bit more of a lesson on how much they're going to pay a guy, because you can't. It's good that they did it, but want to keep doing what they just had to do with Hunter Dozier.
Is there a Les Norman's our guest? Is there a concern that? Let me look something up real quick. Just trying to find Pasquantino's career so far. So he has played in 120 games in his career. So is there a concern to you that the last 25 games, so roughly, he had played fewer than 100 games, and he had, an on-base percentage that was pretty high, and he was slugging and OPSing, that the last 25 games he's getting on base at his on-base percentage is .326, his batting average is .246 in the last 25 games or so. No, his on-base percentage, here it is .299. So his last 25 games, Vinny Pasquantino's on-base percentage is .299. His batting average is .229. So he had roughly 100 games where he was awesome and was really good and burst onto the scene and was doing the things at the big leagues that he was doing in the minor leagues. It's adjusting to the adjustment, but there will be some slumps and hot streaks and things like that.
Yep.
Is this a slump for Pasquantino that, the last 100 plate appearances, sub 300 on base percentage, or is this pitchers doing some things differently and now Vinny's going to have to figure that out and adjust to them?
It's that last part. It's the pendulum swing coming back the other way. I think the Royals maybe we were wrong and we were saying they should sign Vinny long-term right now. Well, maybe the Royals wanted to get this when the pendulum swings the other way. Is he still having good at-bats? Is he striking out more? How is he mentally and emotionally adjusting to the slump? Does he show signs of improvement, and is he trying to make those in-game adjustments? What are their conversations like with hitters? So I think he'll come out of this. It's a minor slump. It's not some big crazy slump. It's not the old Robin Ventura 0 for 50 something. I think he went, or some crazy thing a long time ago. Notice that Robin Ventura mention right there.
Nice.
So,
he was also 0 for 1 in fights with Nolan Ryan, so he had
absolutely. And the O was a big O because there's people going to Google that. If you've never seen the Nolan Ryan Robin Ventura fight, you need to look that up.
Man.
It's quick and it's not for the faint of heart, but it's actually awesome. So anyway, I think he's going to swing out of the pendulum here. He's just got to make his adjustments now, like we always talk about. The big leagues are a chess match between hitters and pitchers, and so he just got to find his way, and the more at bats, it gets tougher. So if he's emotionally strong and keeps his eyes off the scoreboard and just keeps going and doing his thing, he will show his value, and the Royals will reward him, not whether he hits 320 or not, but based on him showing himself to be a mature big leaguer.
Well, I think there's, some things to view this as to look at maybe even some other players on the team. Like, for instance, Vinny Pasquantino, we're talking about the slump. This is the longest sort of extended time that he has struggled in terms of batting average, getting on base at .295. He is slugging .436, though. I mean, he's still OPSing with the sub 300 on base percentage. He's still OPSing at .730, which, I mean, would, 200 points better than some other players on the Royals. And even in that time, in 25 games, he's got 5 home runs and 6 doubles, which would be a pace over 162 for 32 home runs and 39 doubles. Even in the slump, he's walked 9 times. He's struck out 13 times. That's probably the part there that maybe is a little abnormal, is the strikeout number for Vinny Pasquantino. And to me, that's sort of encouraging that even in this stretch to where he's really struggling, he's still hitting the ball hard. He's still driving the ball. He's still getting home runs. He had the 2-run shot yesterday. He's had a number of doubles. And I saw a stat that he actually has the most runs above average cost by defensive plays. So he has actually been hurt. He's been one of the unluckiest players in hard hit balls directly at somebody or plays by defenders that are above average for that particular player and positioning that he's
That's
had.
That's a stat I've never heard of.
I hadn't heard of it. I hadn't
on?
heard of it either until I saw it, and because it benefits Vinny Pasquantino, I just believed it. So,
wow.
It makes sense. He's hit a lot of balls right at guys, and he's had some balls back to the wall and guys, hitting the wall when they are making the catches and some diving plays. And again, he's had a number of Adam Lime drives in this year. So it sounds right. It sounds correct. But I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know who created the stat. But again, it works in Vinny's favor. I'm fine with just regurgitating that on the air for a lot more people to hear that and go, yeah, totally a stat. It's absolutely real. And in today's analytics, even if I made that up, Les, most of us would be none the wiser. Have no idea that was the case. But I bring that up because in his struggles, he's getting on base at 295. This is not then to draw negative, but there's a player on the team that's getting on base at career 288. And that is Bobby Witt. So just sort of the difference of approach that the power numbers can still be there, just as Bobby Witt can drive the ball and have some power while not walking or the on base percentage being lower. That Vinny Pasquantino is doing the same thing, but this is a bad stretch for Vinny. This has been Bobby's career so far, and he was moved out of the number one hole, out of the leadoff spot. So what was your reaction to seeing Prado inserted in the leadoff spot and Bobby Witt moving down to the second, third of the lineup?
Well, I'm 50-50. I think it had to happen. I mean, there's a lot of pressure for a young guy in the leadoff spot when you've had success early, and then all of a sudden you're not only are you not having success, but you're riding the struggle bus for a while. So look, and he still had, he still got a lot of extra base hits, and he steals bases left and right. So it's not like he's been horribly miserable, negative. I think for the pressure off of him, he's still got enough power that he can drive in runs down there. And now maybe he can feel like, look, now there's not this pressure. I'm leading off the game. I've got to do all this and this and this. And so, it's a good move for him to mentally relax. He's still in the lineup. He's going to be in the lineup, and that's a great thing. I'm not sure, and this is my Seren Petro haunting statement. So I'll preface it by saying this. I don't like Prado in the leadoff spot, and I can hear Seren in his office downstairs right now saying, okay, well, if not, then who? So, Seren, I love you, and you always kill me with your truth. But I don't have an answer to that question of who, because when Prado was hitting down in the middle of the order, he's hitting 320, 330, and really doing well and driving in runs. So it worries me that if you're trying to get Witt down there to figure it out, he's not going to have maybe as much RBIs. Maybe it's a trade straight out. I don't know. It remains to be seen. So I'm going to sit back and wait for judgment. I don't know that Prado would have been my guy, but I don't know who else it would have been because the selection of a good leadoff hitter is not there. Maybe they're just trying to ride Prado's on base percentage. The fact that he's hitting over 300, he can do so much there. So if that's the only reason, then it's a good thing. My only fear is that now Prado starts feeling pressure of, leadoff. It's like when you dump into the 4-hole and you're not a number 4 hitter. Oh, well, I guess I have to hit a home run today. So again, I hope the conversation with the 17 hitting instructors that the Royals have and all their people, they're talking to him saying, hey, do not hit like a leadoff hitter. Do exactly what you're doing, and he's able to mentally take the same approach. If that's the case, and hey, as a leadoff hitter, maybe he gets more fastballs, more power to you. And so give me a week or two, I'll make a better judgment. My first thought is, but not yet, because I don't have the answer to Seren's question of who, if not Prado.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back and we'll see if Seren reciprocates the love to Les Norman that he just gave out publicly to one Seren Petro. Les Norman, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. We'll take a break. We'll come back on the other side. I do want to look at some minor leagues numbers for a couple of guys we're talking about and translating to the big leagues and what Les thinks about that. And then, is one of the lessons from Hunter Dozier that, they stayed with guys that they liked a little too long or believed in some guys that maybe didn't have it and didn't move on from them quick enough. We'll talk about how that may relate to the current club. More Zone coming up next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the show live on the Sports Radio 810 WHB Facebook, Twitter, YouTube.
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, Tuesday edition of the show. Todd Lebo will join us at 1 o'clock. Les Norman, our guest, Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell them Les sent you. We continue our conversation with Les Norman. So we connected those two players. It was, Bobby Witt was batting leadoff, and he slides down to the 6 hole. Nick Pratto moves up to bat leadoff, whether that's a perfect leadoff hitter or not. My perfect leadoff hitter is a guy that gets on base. So if you can get on base, then great. Go and lead off just to sort of set the table. And when Prado is a guy that's getting on base at 400 this year, and you follow that up with Vinny Pasquantino, who's been getting on base outside of this most recent 25-game stretch in his career, then you got a couple of guys there at the top of the lineup that can be on base for Salvi. And
and if stolen bases aren't your thing,
they aren't.
Then
No,
it's okay.
Yeah, no. I'd rather a guy get on base and then find a way home rather than not be able to get on base. But if he ever does, then he could maybe steal a base.
Yeah.
Because even the leader in stolen bases this year is Esteury Ruiz with 24. Like, he doesn't steal a base. Which, by the way, Esteury Ruiz was in the Royals system. They traded him because they were going for it for some reason in 2017. Who was the pitcher from the A's that they got that who really cares about that guy now? I can't remember his name, whoever it was that they ended up trading for. The pitcher for the A's in 17, Drake, when they made those moves.
See, this is what we do. We forget things. I just got a text from a friend of mine named Ben. Ben said that from now on, can we just tell stories like Mayberry and Leonard and Fitzy instead of talking about the Royals?
Yes, we can. That is perfectly fine.
We can do that.
Yes.
Yep. And talk about our kids. We have to be able to talk about little man and our kids.
Yeah. Trevor Cahill.
Trevor Cahill, that's right.
It was Esteury Ruiz and Matt Strom for Buchter, Cahill, and Brennan Maurer.
But that was the Padres, not the A's.
Did I say the A's?
You did.
Damn it.
You did.
I meant the Padres. My bad. But Cahill came up with the A's, though, right? I think Trevor Cahill came up with the A's. I'm certain of that. 25% certain that he came up with the A's. But anyway, that was so Esteury Ruiz leads Major League Baseball with 24 stolen bases, and he plays center field. But whatever, if you're into that whole sort of thing, not like he would be needed by the Royals. So my perfect on base percent or leadoff hitter is a guy that would be able to get on base. So I bring that up because Nick Prado is I don't know if he's going to stay as the leadoff hitter. Quatrero said after the game yesterday that just because it's one game doesn't mean that it's going to be every game moving forward. But Nick Prado in AA and AAA had a 380 on-base percentage. And different stints with the Royals hasn't been able to back that up. This one, he has, because with the Royals in the big league club so far this year, he's getting on base at 410. Bobby Witt, he had an on-base percentage in his minor league career of 340. So I'm finding it right now. So it's not the high level that Prado was, but he also wasn't, at 350 actually in the minors, 2 seasons, so 161 games in the minors. He had an on-base percentage of 350. He hasn't come close to that. Nick Prado has been able to back up some of the on-base percentages, especially this year, of what he was able to do in the minors. Vinny Pasquantino was able to do that. Bobby Witt, it's not like his on-base percentage was all batting average. He batted 280, but he got on base at 350. So he struck out a whole lot. So what do you make of just that? Like, Prado's been able to translate that to a degree. Pasquantino's translated it to a degree. Bobby Witt has not. Is that just it's easier to get on base in the minors even though you're striking out because, maybe guys are a little more wild and less movement and easier to identify pitches? And now he gets in the big leagues, and what looks like a strike is now working off the plate, and you're swinging at that, whereas Pasquantino and Prado are able to spin on it and just know, what's coming to a degree. What do you make of that the on-base percentage of Bobby Witt in his minors, small sample size, that's not translated even close to what some of the other guys have?
Sometimes, in the minor leagues, yes, it's easier. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of those guys in the minor leagues, on every AAA staff or even some AA staffs, you don't have 5 guys that all could be big league starters. They're just waiting on an opportunity to come to a different team. I mean, there's a reason they're down there. So, yeah, it's easier. It's also easier mentally for some guys because, when you're a first pick in the first round, you're going to be in the big leagues very soon. And so when you're in the minor leagues, there's nothing to think about. Somebody like me, a 26-round pick who signs for $2,000 and is hoping to be a 5th outfielder in low A ball. I mean, that's a whole different outlook than when you sign for millions of dollars and know you're the shortstop of the future. And so it's a little bit easier. Maturity can maybe come a little bit faster. Maybe it doesn't. Who knows? But, let's remember, though, as we try to think about and figure out who should be, if not Nick Pratto, or is Nick Pratto, can he adjust, and why are we having to move Bobby Witt Jr. down? If we had a minor league system and we had a team that had a prototypical two-hole hitter, that it was, if we were able to have a leadoff hitter who could steal 50 bases, I mean, sure, every team wants it, but if you look at the best teams out there, you know, they've got guys that you can see their leadoff hitter and say, oh, yep, there's your leadoff hitter. Oh, yeah, there's your 3-hole hitter. Yeah, that's a perfect 9-hole hitter who can complement the 1-hole hitter. And the Royals just don't have that. And so this is a situation that we're talking about who should be fitting here, who should be fitting here. Well, Cotraro is trying to play the chess game of, you know, he's putting on plaid fabric patches on leather seats. I mean, it's just it's too difficult to do. And so there is a mindset of the transition of minor leagues to the big leagues. There are some people that don't care. There are some hitters that have a different mindset change. However, up and down the lineup this year, you only have maybe 1 or 2 prototypical guys. Pratto has been for a short season, but your 2 prototypical guys really have been Vinny and Salvi. So there's 7 other positions out there you're trying to patchwork together to make something work. And so I think that we got to make sure we pay attention to that part of it because it forces managers' hands.
Visiting with Les Norman. He is from Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and Amazing Garage Floors. Tell him Les sent you. One of the other lessons that I wonder from the Dozier part of the move yesterday is, you know, the connection that the Royals had to a group of players that they didn't want to move away from. So we've talked about it ad nauseum a lot around the Royals and the group of players that won the World Series and not ejecting earlier and starting that rebuild process with better chips to work with instead of, you know, guys just simply walking. So trading a Hosmer, a Moustakas, a Gordon, a Kane, maybe even a Salvi, you know, at one point to replenish the minor leagues and to start over. Instead, it was holding on to them for too long, and then in 2017 feeling like, you know what, let's trade some pieces so that we can go for it this year. And again, I mentioned Esteury Ruiz, who's getting on base at 350 and is playing center field and has 24 stolen bases this year. So cool if you're into that whole sort of thing that the Royals had. And they also traded Matt Strahm in that deal, who is pitching for the Phillies and has a 2.7 ERA and has 47 strikeouts in 33 innings. Cool if you're into that whole sort of thing of, you know, effective pitching and stuff. And, you know, getting on base, playing center field. The Royals could use a center fielder, I've heard. They could also use a leadoff hitter, I've heard. But whatever, they could use a pitcher that has a sub-3 ERA, I've heard. No big deal. But that's part of the lesson to me as well, is that misevaluating where you actually are in your ability to compete, go for it, and when it's time to move on to the next phase. They moved on to the next phase eventually, and that was Whit Merrifield. It was Hunter Dozier. It was Salvi. It was Adalberto Mondesi. Michael A. Taylor they brought in. Andrew Benintendi they brought in. And now that phase is over. Mondesi gone. Whit Merrifield's gone. Dozier's now gone. Taylor, Benintendi, Santana, those guys are gone. And it's really just Salvi remaining. To me, the one of the lessons is assessing your own talent, assessing where you are, and not being so emotionally tied and unwilling to move somebody that can make you 5% better because of, you know, well, this might make the fans unhappy. They might not show up to the ballpark. Well, I hate to break it to you, but they ain't showing up to the ballpark now. Okay, so if Salvi ain't on the team, who's going to go to the game? Same people that are going to the game now. Nobody is going to go to the game. So that's one of the lessons, too, is that you're seeing guys who they traded away because in 2017, for some ungodly reason, they thought, we can go for it. Let's trade pieces to get better. And they gave away 2 guys that are playing pretty damn well right now in baseball, in Matt Strahm and Esteury Ruiz. They'd be nice on the Royals right now.
They would be. And you made a mention of trading someone like Salvi. Would it make you 5% better? Remember, this team is a quarter of a century under 500. So is it really only 5%? I mean, would it make them 20% better? You know, I mean, based on what we have. And so, you know, I know some of it Nate Eaton's a good player. Who figure out he'd be hitting 050? I mean, that's just one example. Massey got a really slow start, but he's been hitting the ball better, which is good. He's starting to come out of it, and so that's a viable playing option. But it's a business. This is not your local travel team that we've had your kids together since they were 8, and now they're 16, and they're traveling around playing in major tournaments for college showcases. That's not what this is. This is a business, and there are trades, and you're trying to improve your ball club. But if you get to a point where you just refuse to do things that'll make you better just based on emotion, when a fan base is not the issue. I mean, listen, fans, I'm not saying you're not an issue. You are an issue. But again, like you said, Jason, people aren't coming to games. I mean, people just aren't coming out there. You know, my son and I are doing the 30, trying to about 3 years, we're trying to go to a game in every ballpark. And I told him, because I'm not a Cardinal fan, that's the first place we're going because I got to get it over with. And so last week we went to a Cardinal game. It was the game where the Cardinals hit 7 home runs. They beat the Dodgers 16-8. Freddie Freeman hit a grand slam for his 300th. But that's a team that was 8 or 9 games under 500 before the game. And although they didn't sell out in a stadium that they hold 63,000, that atmosphere of 33,000 was electric. And they're losing, but it was an electric atmosphere. They were diehard. They were into the game. The players were into the game. It was just a different feel. And I remember looking at my son, and my son said to me, he's like, "This just feels different than the K." I said, "Yeah, I know. It's a different fan base, different team, different history, all those things. But I think I get what you're saying. So it's just a matter of if you've got the ability and at least a few players." And I don't want Selvey to go anywhere. I love Selvey. I want him to stay forever. I want him to play when he's 68 years old and still be catching. Doesn't work that way. So you have to be able to improve your ball club unless this is just the only thing we want is a downtown ballpark and we're not going to get better. Leave it like it is. But if we're really a big league team and we want to get better, you have to do a lot of different things. Develop your farm system, do good in the draft, and then also trade players when you're in a position where you're not going to contend. That is right now, and I would like to see it.
Yeah, and players that are, of value at that time, and maybe you're maximizing that rather than, getting a discount when you're trying to trade them. Was Gorman one of the guys that hit 1 or 2 or 3 other home runs that day?
No, let me see. For the Cardinals, Arenado hit 1, but they hit 4 in 1 inning. And if it wasn't for Arenado, they'd have hit 5 in a row. But Contreras hit 2 that game. Nolan Gorman hit 2 that game.
Yeah, so he hit 2, yeah.
Yepes hit 1.
Yeah.
DeYoung hit 1. Arenado hit 1. So there's your 7.
I know we got to go to break, but it just popped into my head when you were saying that Nolan Gorman was a guy that was selected in the draft directly after Brady Singer. Was the very next pitch, and a connection to Bobby Witt in that, the first 90 games for Gorman last year with the Cardinals, he got on base at 300. He batted 226 and as a 22-year-old. And then it clicked. And then he figured it out. And by the way, he was a guy in the minors that had a 330 on base percentage. So he wasn't a guy that had a 400. And now he's batting 300, on basing at almost 400. He's leading Major League Baseball with slugging percentage as a second baseman. That guy has absolutely figured it out, turned it on, and he is one of the best players in baseball right now. And last year he was not that, and he could barely get on base at a 300 clip. So at least there's, an example of somebody that was a high school player that came through the minors and wasn't, a guy who was an on-base machine that came to the big leagues, and he profiled like he kind of was in the minors and struck out a lot and didn't walk very often. And then he just has put it all together, and he's been a completely different player this year. So at least one guy. It just happens to be for the team across the state. So that is unfortunate. Les, you're the man. Really appreciate the time, sir. Enjoy your time there in Russell, and we'll talk next week.
All right, buddy. Hey, remember we talked about remember the softball story of me getting to play with both of my sons that happened last night, all on the same team. Just wanted to remind you that you have those tiers ahead of you. Just keep enjoying the young while you have them.
I want to talk to you about that next week. We'll talk about the clinic, and then last night what happened. We'll talk about that with you next week. Les, appreciate it, man. Safe travels as well.
Thanks. We'll see you, buddy.
Absolutely. There's Les Norman. Breaking the Norm, presented by TruckMovers.com, First Federal Bank of Kansas City, and amazing garage floors. Tell them Les sent you. We take a timeout. We come back. More Zone right after this.
Take the show with you by listening live on 810 WHB.
But having the softball game last night that he said, and we talked about it before, of both of his sons there playing a baseball game with him, that's got to be pretty cool. So we'll talk with Les about different things. Hopefully next week we're talking about some wins for this Royals team over the next week or so. I got to look to see if they've even announced who the starting pitcher is for tonight. Like, it's usually like around this time, like, all right, are they close to announcing what the lineup is going to look like? Have they even announced who the pitcher is for tonight? I know they're going up against Eduardo Rodriguez. I know that. Haven't seen, still not out yet. TBD going to the mound tonight. We'll see. Lebo next. All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Todd Lebo, and Drake. We head up until 2 o'clock. The program was when Pretcho comes your way at 2. Game 4 of the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe the final game of the conference finals in these NBA playoffs, could take place tonight.
Set the finals to start in August, so it's already set.
If the game is over tonight, or if the Eastern Conference Finals is over tonight, there will be an 8-day break between the conference finals and the NBA finals.
Either way, the Nuggets get that.
Yeah, yes. They get it regardless.
Go ahead, play.
Do they have to go through training camp before they start the finals now for the Nuggets?
They might, man. It's wild.
It is crazy.
They started first, and they got it swept, and now it's like, okay, when will this start?
Yes. Because you got to make room for the 7 games if it goes that.
Well, you have to play in your TV schedules. I get it. I mean, these networks have other things on. you can't kick something off to put something else on. So
and it's not like the NFL where it's a one game, so you know exactly who's.
Why wouldn't LeBron have just tried to win one of the games?
He shouldn't have just laid down, because a lot of people think that he shrank in the fourth quarter there, and he wasn't nearly as aggressive as he should have been. Because 40 points and 10 rebounds and 9 assists and playing all but 4 seconds of the game just wasn't aggressive enough.
Yeah,
it wasn't good enough. And then
I'm honestly surprised he didn't get a call at the end.
I actually am too.
It was a really good defensive play.
It was. It was a great defensive play by Jamal Murray.
But still.
Yeah.
I mean,
it wasn't a foul,
LeBron.
Though.
It wasn't.
It was clean. He thought it was a foul, but that's typically what LeBron thinks.
Well, now you can go back and challenge those, right?
Yeah, it's true, but it wasn't
so silly.
Yeah, but I don't think you can go back and challenge a non-call.
And to
call it a foul. It's got to be to where it's a foul. That's look.
I had given up on the game.
Yeah.
I mean, the Lakers looked like they were going to just go win a game, and it was going to be fine.
I did too. Yeah.
And then I clicked over. I was watching the Royals, and then I was like, oh, well, look at this. Look at this score. I better turn this thing back on for a minute.
In about the second quarter, I thought, this is a game where the Lakers are going to end up losing. And the reason when they went up 15 at half, I didn't think that was going to be the case. But I'm watching and I'm like, the Nuggets don't have the same energy that they've had, and yet the Lakers are up 4. Yeah. The Lakers are hitting threes. Schroeder's hitting threes. The Nuggets don't have the same energy. They're not going and getting all the loose balls that they were getting in the first 3 games, and they're only up 4. LeBron's got almost 30 at half. Yeah. They're hitting threes. Yeah, the Nuggets are gonna eventually get rolling, and championship teams don't make some bad mistakes that they made in some of the peripheral parts. Like there was one particular play, and your boy Austin Reeves. I don't know what his issue is, but. This is
second round pick.
Yeah,
shouldn't be starting for a good team.
Yeah, and it's one particular play, but I think it was indicative of the second half for the Lakers and kind of what we've seen in this postseason at times. He closes out on Caldwell Pope, who was in the corner, and he runs and closes out and jumps. Caldwell Pope shoots it. Reeves is standing on the baseline and just stops and just turns around and watches. And the ball starts bouncing around, and then he starts just walking back towards, and the ball bounces right to Caldwell Pope, where he would have been had he just got back in the play and boxed out. And then Caldwell Pope gets the ball. Reeves then hustles over there. Caldwell Pope passes it and then cuts back door, and Reeves gets beat for a dunk and an and one.
It's not great.
But that was, and it's not to pick on Reeves. It was just, those were things that the Lakers were doing last night. Like somehow in a elimination game, you saw guys that weren't diving on the floor.
You got to be on for 48 minutes.
Especially against that team. That team is really freaking good. And LeBron it was interesting how sort of jovial he was in the postgame last night. And the reason I think he was like that is I think it's different losing a series in which you felt like you had a chance to win. I think LeBron knows after last night's game, they weren't beating that team. That team was going to beat them a best of 3, a best of 5, a best of 7, a best of 100. That team was going to win. And I think there's probably some solace that you can take. And look, I did what I can do. That team was just simply better than they are, and they're better than the other 2 teams remaining as well. And they're going to win the championship this year. They are an absolute deserving team. And I think they're a duo that will start to get some respect in that Jokic and Jamal Murray outplayed KD and Booker and outplayed LeBron and AD, and they will more than likely outplay Butler and who else?
Whoever.
I don't know. I mean, the problem is there's no
Jimmy and somebody
other to Butler. Butler and Bam, whoever the duo is there.
But everybody's talking today, and Shane was joking running through the hall. It's all about LeBron. He's under contract. He's not going to just walk away from.
Yeah, I mean, he said he's got a lot to think about.
$50 million or whatever.
His
he's supposed
son
to make,
is a year away from joining the NBA. I think he wants to play in the NBA with his son. Bronny's got a year at USC, and then look, I don't think he's going to be a one and done type player. Like you wouldn't look at that player and go, he's a one and done. I think he's going to be a phenomenal defensive player. I think he's got some bounce. He can shoot the ball, but your traditional like one and done. The name Bronny James would say he's going to be one and done, but if he's really a year away playing college ball to being in the NBA, then I would be shocked if LeBron doesn't play at least 2 more years.
When you sign like Max Steel or whatever he signed, would he just not get the money, and it would just no,
Yeah.
I don't want this?
Right. I mean, I just can't.
It's like $50-some million a year.
Yeah. I mean, he's made more money than he'll ever be able to spend.
But you're
in
never going to
investments and
regret
everything.
having that
Right.
$50 million,
Yeah.
especially when you don't have to. Now he's
Yeah.
not a big load management. I'm only going to play 40 games guy, but he's not playing.
He's not
the
playing
full
82, and he's had some injuries the last couple of years, so his body is breaking down in LeBron terms.
Right.
His body's not breaking down to where it's like now he can't walk, because he's played 20 years in the NBA. He's also played
55 this year. That's
55 out of 82.
That's money per game. That's good stuff, man.
And he's
played 29 points a game.
So
he still can play.
Yeah, he's played 20 years, and then his postseason career has added up to what would be 3 years of regular season basketball. So he's got 23 years of regular season basketball on his body.
280 games.
Yeah, so he's, even more than that.
I was looking up Carmelo
3 years
the other day.
plus.
Carmelo's played like 80 postseason games. Never won, never had a deep run.
He played in one postseason game that was my favorite.
I'm talking as a pro.
Oh, I was thinking maybe 03.
Do you have any memories of him in a pro in the postseason? No, because
no.
I'm not sure they ever won more than one series.
But I do have memories of him in the postseason
I do too.
Championship game.
I do
remember
too.
That.
But LeBron is, the guy can absolutely still play the game. There's no question about that.
I mean, he's better than
almost everyone
85,
in the game.
90, 95% of the players. He's not the best player in the world anymore.
No.
That might be the guy he was going up against in the series. That's
Which
who
is
I
just
think it is
kinda-
right now. Like,
it's so funny looking. He doesn't look like he should be.
Right. Jokic back-to-back MVPs. Could have been three in a row. But,
Should have been three.
Embiid won it this year, which is fine. Whatever. He'll be finals MVP because he's a walking triple-double. And I think it's good that the Nuggets, Jamal Murray, who I like, I've liked him since he was back in college, and didn't give him nearly enough respect for how good he was as a true freshman that dropped 20 points per game and shot 42% from three as a true freshman in college at Kentucky. That's pretty freaking legit if you're a true freshman. And like we were talking about, Ochai Agbaji dropping 20 points per game for KU in his final year, and how many KU players have averaged actually 20 points per game. Like, that's a legit thing to do in college at a big-time program. And when he's been healthy in the postseason, in the bubble, they played in the Western Conference Finals. This year, they're going to the NBA Finals when he's been healthy. Like, that duo is, I think, probably now going to get some of the respect that they deserve. And that's a really well-constructed team.
It is. I mean, they need to go win it. And they do look like the best team. There's no question about that. But
I'm already giving them the championship, Todd.
The best team doesn't always win.
Already giving them the championship. I mean,
done.
4 more wins. I'm not sure how they'll get there, but they have 4 more wins in them.
I think they probably do, but boy, the Heat have gotten a lot of momentum. Now, the weird thing will be, this will be one of those things, they both have momentum. If the Heat win tonight and they both sit around for 7 or 8 days, they're going to be sluggish probably.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
That'll be.
Maybe we'll be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. But it was an expected result last night in that I didn't expect the Lakers to win. I didn't bet on the Lakers. They were like, 3.5-point favorites? I'm like, yeah, I'm not putting money on the Lakers there. I had some, single game parlays.
Had some props working?
With DraftKings. Luckily, it was a no sweat single game parlay, so I got my bet back.
You did not win that one?
No, part of my single game parlay had Rui hitting 1-3. I missed on 2 of my 9-leg parlay. Hachimura hitting 1-3 and scoring 10 points. I think he ended up with 8 points. So that 1-3, that if he'd have knocked that down, would have been great. But I was on the wrong side of a couple that I got lucky on that, so I probably needed to get unlucky on that one. But I wasn't putting money on the game line at all, because that one to me was going to be a closer game that maybe the Lakers win, maybe the Lakers lose, or it was going to be a blowout where the Nuggets were going to win by 25.
Well, what you have to credit the Nuggets with is fighting back, obviously. And then when, they had kind of control of the game, and the Lakers kept kind of coming back, but they never let them tie.
No.
They never let them get the lead. They always made a basket. They always made a play. And they're just really good. I mean, they're a well, as you said, a well-constructed team,
Mhm.
and they're going to be real tough to beat. They beat the Heat twice in the regular season. They were both very good games. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they're sweeping them because the Heat have a lot going for them
They
right
do.
now, and they got a lot of momentum. But
The thing
it'll be
about
fun.
the thing about the Nuggets that I think is separated in this series that there was a Major League Baseball sweep. Was it the White Sox when they
beat the Astros in the World Series
and they swept?
They won what, like 6 games or six run differential.
Yeah,
for
it was like
4
for 4
yeah.
games and 6 runs. It was like one of the closest sweeps ever. This felt like that. Like it was a sweep, but
They
the
were
final
good
2 minutes
games,
of the
yeah.
games, it was, are the Lakers going to make plays to be able to do this? But the story and the theme was the Nuggets making the shot, the Nuggets making the play, the Nuggets getting the free throw line, the Nuggets the extra, offensive rebound, the second chance that's there.
Whatever they needed.
Yeah, and it's just a really good team, and I think Murray and Jokic will start to get a lot more praise because there are a lot more Nuggets fans across the country today than there was a week ago.
Oh, for sure.
Because people don't like LeBron. So there was the rooting against LeBron, so you become a Joker fan and Jamal Murray, and that's perfectly fine. And they seem like a really likable team too.
Yeah, we'll see what
Like
it turns
the Warriors,
into.
the Warriors were likable, but Draymond was not.
Right. This will be interesting. We've talked about this. Ratings are built by, big cities and matchups and stuff like that, but also games. The games have to be good.
Yeah.
You can have a smaller market, whatever. And Denver's not a small market. That's a big city. But and Miami's a big city. But to the people in Miami, I mean, Nate was talking about this yesterday on the Border Patrol. He got to go to the game Sunday night.
Yeah.
And, the city's in love with him right now. That's a big city. But there are plenty of people who live in Miami are like, they're Knicks fans or Celtics fans or something because they're, snowbirds who have like retired down there. So I don't think it captivates that city that size the way it would captivate some bigger cities or even smaller cities who everyone's from there, and this is what they've grown up loving. So, I mean, there'll be some ratings there, but will the rest of the NBA fans tune it in? Maybe so. We'll see. But if they'll watch games, the games are good. Like you couldn't watch the game the other night, Sunday. If you watched that whole thing, you were just a glutton for punishment, or you're a Heat fan, or you were just bored. You were, especially if you were going to watch Succession or something, because I mean, it was like there was way better things to watch than that thing on TV. But many of the games have been really good. Those first 2 rounds of the playoffs were awesome.
Yeah.
And we just haven't had many games like that. If we have some games like that with high drama, people will watch it. The league fans will watch it because there are stars in here. It's the secondary star when you think of LeBron or Steph or Kevin Durant or somebody. But, I mean, Jokic is a star. He's as good a player as they've had in the league in a while with the way he fills the stat sheet up. And Jimmy Butler's really fun to watch. They don't have as many names on these teams, but I think the games will do it. If the games are good, people will watch.
So you need the games to be good, and you also need the series to be closer in terms of games won.
Exactly.
Because this was a sweep, and the games were good, but it was still a sweep, so it didn't really matter at that
drama.
point. Because last night, I know there's a number of people that are like, it's Game 4, they're down 3-0. What am I watching for?
Right.
Well, you're watching to root against LeBron. So let's.
No one would do that.
That's what people are watching for.
No one would do that.
I don't know. I think people were. I think that.
Yeah,
I think that happens.
you're projecting.
No. I think it's weird that, if he passes late in the game when he gets double teamed, then he shies away from the moment and doesn't want to take the shot. Then when he forces the shot when he's double teamed, it's embarrassing that would happen, and what a clown show that was for him to be.
I know a lot about basketball. I'm going to tell LeBron what he should have done last night. He probably should have like a little step back and shot a 12-footer or something, because it was going to be hard to get. He had to step down. He probably, and Murray was on him. He could have elevated and got a shot up. But I get what he was thinking. Get to the line.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get to the line.
His success had been driving and attacking, and I actually thought they were a little surprised that they didn't set up to where, even if there's 4 seconds, so you can get the ball to LeBron at the top of the key and then bring whoever Jokic is guarding to come set the screen. So it's then LeBron versus Jokic at the top of the key, and then he drives and attacks and lays it up. Because especially when Jokic picked up his 5th foul, that's what they were doing, and LeBron was scoring. But he had Gordon on him, who wasn't in foul trouble, who, played it straight up, and then Jamal Murray was right there. He
Great
dribbled
defense.
Dribbled into a double team. There wasn't a foul. It was great. Sometimes great defense should be rewarded rather than just LeBron, is a laughing stock for taking the last shot.
Now, the interesting thing about it is, and referees would never think about this, but let's say it's 3-2 in this series.
Interesting.
Could have been a series-defining call.
Yeah.
That call was just going to delay the inevitable, likely. And listen, he would have maybe made 2 free throws. Maybe he'd have made 1 and missed 1.
Yeah.
And maybe they go overtime. Maybe they don't go overtime. Who knows? But I know this: when the shot doesn't get up to the basket and the game's over, the game's over. But had the Lakers won, it probably still wouldn't have really mattered in the overall scheme of things. But boy, I tell you what, if that had been Game 7 or Game 6, would have been a lot more calls on the where's the whistle.
What would have been funny is, say they do call the foul. The Nuggets hadn't used their challenge yet. They challenged that. There's no foul.
Yeah.
There's no foul. That thing's getting overturned.
That would have been,
that would have been great. Game's over.
Yeah.
And then the Nuggets go out and celebrate, cheer. One of those delayed reactions where
we've seen a few of those in baseball where it was a safer out.
Yeah,
at the plate. Game over.
That one, at least for Nuggets fans and the Nuggets players, that was organic. That was the game's over. The game's over. You can rush the floor and jump and hug and everything, rather than foul called and you're mad, and then it's like, oh, let's use our challenge. Then it's overturned, and then you run out and celebrate there. But
I do think the NBA is fairly quick with their challenges. They do a nice job with it, and with the out of bounds, they do pretty well.
That one should have been that one would have been a quick one if they'd have called a foul there, because that was really, really good defense.
But we will have Game 4 of the East tonight right here on Sports Radio 810.
So
we'll see what happens. See if the Celtics they show up to the gym. Were they at shoot around? I don't even know. Find out if they made it.
Whatever you've been doing the first 3 games, do something different.
Exactly.
Playoff Jimmy is real.
Yeah, maybe they just went out and just getting in from the clubs. I don't know. They should do something different. The Celtics should.
Mazzulla should do something different.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Playoff Jimmy's Frank Clark. I'm telling you, man. Jimmy Butler, Frank Clark, same.
Than that. He's something.
Same thing. No, is he better than Frank Clark? Really?
Well, it's different because
I don't know. Frank Clark's got the.
You can't really compare sacks to points. But boy, Jimmy is on it, man.
He's unbelievable.
He's on it for sure.
We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. I do want to talk to Todd a little bit. We barely addressed yesterday the Clay County and then Mayor Q's response, but also then Frank White, his response that is essentially like, we're not getting into this bidding war going on. So I want to talk a little bit about that with Todd Leabo. Dozier got DFA'd, so we've been talking about that. OTAs going on with the Chiefs yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We'll hear from Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes as well. And then we'll have a special guest before the show is over. Got
Who could it be?
I don't know. Maybe a new intern that's here.
Maybe so.
Maybe. You know what? We're going to talk to Alex. You just have to figure out who that is before the show is over. Where's our next?
You're in the zone with Jason Anderson on Sports Radio 810.
The Zone is brought to you by Google Fiber, award-winning internet without data caps, annual contracts, or hidden fees.
All right, we continue hanging out on this Tuesday edition of The Zone. Eastern Conference Finals Game 4 coming up tonight on Sports Radio 810 WHB. The program is when Petro comes up next. Still TBD for the Royals on who will start today. Johnny Holstaff, we'll see who was out there on the mound against Eduardo Rodriguez, who has a 2.06 ERA tonight. So, cool. It works out well for him. No big deal. Whoever they have probably will have roughly the same ERA and whip as the Tigers pitcher. So we'll find out. 913-912-4810 is the text line to be a part of the show, part of the conversation, to join us as we've talked about a number of different things. Text says CBS has Mike Mayers as the starter tonight, which would make sense when it comes to the last time he pitched and pitch count and things like that. So Tex says, Q doesn't seem to have that fire that will light up a team. He seems to have a batting or pitching coach's temperament. Our team is so boring, so flat. I'm ready to just clean house. Interesting.
Already?
But here's the thing, though. You know who did have that? Mike Matheny.
Yeah.
They didn't exactly win with Mike Matheny either.
No.
Here's what I would say. Whether your manager is rah-rah or even keel, it probably matters more as who your players are. Because you're not going to throw chairs around and give some crazy Kirby Smart pre-national championship speech in the locker room 162 times in baseball.
Can't do it.
It's going to be let's get him tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Let's get him tomorrow. Because even when they had won a couple of games, what was the question to Quatrero? It was like, hey, you got some men. We got well, yeah. Well, we'll see what happens tomorrow, because when we come to the ballpark tomorrow, nobody cares about what we did today.
I mean, I love his attitude. They need to win some games. But then again, we've said this a bunch of times. They just have to survive these seasons, and moves like getting rid of Hunter Dozier are progress towards finding out what this future of this franchise is about. But you have to live through every one of these games. You can't just fast forward. You can't simulate the season like you would on MLB The Show or FIFA or something like that. You have to play them all, and we have to talk about them all, and you have to watch them all or go to the game and be a part of it however you do it. You cannot fast forward a Major League Baseball season and just get it over with. You have to endure the entire thing.
So I'm still trying to figure out, I didn't do it in one of the breaks, so I'm going to do it live on the air now, where the old saying of were you born in a barn comes from. Because I had heard that my whole life, were you born in a barn. The original meaning of the phrase traces to an exclamation of one literally leaving the door open, In an era past, farmers often left the barn doors open during the day for livestock to pasture.
To get in and out.
To get in and out. Okay.
There you go.
That's easy enough.
Sure.
Seems to make sense.
Not from a Shakespeare play or something, though?
No, it's not from Hamlet.
No.
It's not from Henry IV. So that's too bad. I wish it was. Robert Frost originally penned something there.
What, were you born in a barn?
Were you born in a barn, said thou?
Yeah.
Thou wast not born in said barn.
Should have been. Yeah, that's too bad it's not. A lot of those things are.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we've talked about it sporadically that's been going on in a number of different, shows here at 810. It also talked about it. It's one of the things going on. But the mayor of North Kansas City, and though it's in Clay County, they at least have a plan or a target date to potentially this is a target date to potentially have something on the ballot in November for Clay County residents to vote on.
Now, I mean, I think you have to have the Royals have to say, please do this before you.
They would.
I mean, I guess you wouldn't have to. You could.
I guess you could pass it and say, if the Royals move here, we will have this already in place.
If
because
they don't,
that would be a major step forward. Because no matter where the Royals want to move to, they're going to have to get it passed by the residents. So if Clay County, gets a step ahead and actually puts it on the ballot and votes for it while the Royals are still dealing with Jackson County, and if Jackson County is going to put it on the docket, it's not going to be till April next year. It's not going to be on November's. It's not going to be on August this year. I think it might be optimistic and maybe aggressive to be on the ballot in November for Clay County, because there's a lot of things and hoops to jump through and hurdles to go over, because it's not going to be as easy as, hey, we're going to extend this tax that's already on the docket. Because you're going to have a brand new tax. You're going to have more because there are less residents in Clay County than Jackson County. So you need a higher tax to be able to take care of the money that Jackson County would take care of by the tax that they would implement with more residents. There's a lot that has to be decided. And also, it would be a waste of time if you're doing this and spending resources to try to figure out what to do in Clay County, if the Royals are, in fact, only using you as a bargaining chip, which is on their side, there as in the county side. It's on their side to figure out what their role is. Are we a role as we are actually a viable option here for the Royals to move to? Or are we a role that we are just being used like some other cities in these negotiations to then raise and get a better deal for the city they're already going to? Or are we just being used so that Jackson County will give up more so that the Royals will get a better deal, and they're never actually serious about coming over here across the river to North Kansas City, that they just want to increase the offer, and if they don't increase the offer, well, then they'll just simply go with what is already there. This is a tactic for the Royals.
Yeah, we don't know exactly yet. I mean, the Royals they've been somewhat transparent, right? They haven't been entirely transparent. The amazing thing about this is when they voted last time, I'll say we, I'm in Jackson County, and when we voted last time, this was all the way back in 2006. We're talking 17 years ago, this election was up. And there were two questions on the election, and they dealt with two franchises, the Royals and the Chiefs. Number one was, should we have a 3/8 cents sales tax to raise money to renovate both of these stadiums? If you recall, leading up to this thing, they had been told during spring training, I believe, if you do this, you get a Major League Baseball All-Star game. And they were told at the NFL owners meetings, if you do this,
if you put a roof on,
the other question, you can have a Super Bowl. So they had two different things going. From the people I talked to back then and the people I've still talked to today about this, they really wanted to make sure the first one passed. And if you go back and look at the results, the first one passed. This wasn't 60-40 or 70-30. It was like 53-47. It was pretty close on this thing because many people are just like, I'm not voting for any tax increases. And then the other one failed. But there was a thought that had they not put the roof on there, maybe the first one wouldn't have passed because people went in there and they just justified, well, I'm not doing this dumb roof. All right, I'll give them this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We'll never know because they were both on there. And they weren't both thought of at the same time. One was on, and then they decided, let's put the other one on. I don't know what the city or the Jackson County taxpayers would think now about this. A couple of years later, or simultaneously, right before that, it was about the same time. They opened Sprint Center in 2007. That was not done with taxpayer money. That was done with funds and fees on rental cars and hotel rooms. So that didn't cost the taxpayers money the way the sales tax does in Jackson County. Everyone loved that. Hey, man, we're not paying for it. The people who come in for conventions are paying for it. The people who rent cars are going to pay for it. Smaller price tag, too. Didn't cost as much money. So I don't know where Jackson County is right now. I know this. I think they put this information out from North Kansas City on Friday for a reason. They want to force the Royals to do some things. They also just had a big to-do on Thursday with the state of Missouri, the state of Kansas, Jackson County, the city of Kansas City, all being all in on the World Cup, which is going to cost a lot of money for something that's 3 weeks, right? And so I think they're like, Jackson County might be a little bit vulnerable. People could be like, wait a second. And I don't think, like I was talking to Mayor Lucas last week, and I don't think they need to put things on the ballot to get money for some of the funding they need to do for Kansas City itself. Yeah. There's not going to be some ballot.
So that's just going to, the $50 million is going to be allocated.
But it's just going to be allocated. But people are like, wait a second. You're spending whatever $1 million, $10 million, something like this on something that's just going to be here for a few weeks. Okay, now you need to give us some sales tax money to do this and separate these two teams. I just don't know if Jackson County, Missouri has the tummy for this or whatever it's going to cost the teams in the county and everything to separate them on this lease before the lease is over, that's going to be a mess.
Not only that, I mean...
So Clay County's swooping in saying, hey, let's put ourselves on the map, in my opinion.
I don't think that it is just a negotiating ploy. I don't think Clay County is just going to be used. I think, look, I would still be shocked if East Village is not where the new stadium is going to go.
I'd be less shocked now than I would have been.
I agreed. I'm less shocked now. But then, because when it was, we're looking at Kansas City. We're going to be in Kansas. That's the site. There's a couple sites there, but people sort of just assumed, and I'm still shocked. I would still be shocked if they didn't move to the East Village. But what they start to run into is, okay, so this 3/8 cent tax is through 2030, 2031, whatever it is, and we're not going to charge you more. We're just going to roll that over. But if you're building the stadium, you're not rolling it over, because where's that 3/8 cent tax going to? Well, it's going to the Truman Sports Complex right now, still paying that off. Well, you can't just stop allocating that and then put it somewhere else. So you're going to allocate that until the lease is up, unless you get out of the lease. But then the Chiefs are going to be saying, whoa, we still get our piece of the pie with the 3. You're not getting all of that. You're not just going to carry that all over. So you're only getting some of that with the no new taxes. We're just going to roll this over. The other thing you run into is, where are the Chiefs at on this? Because the Chiefs are going to then come back and ask for money too. So the Royals are going to say, we're not asking for more money. We're just rolling this same tax over. Okay, well, as soon as the Royals leave, the Chiefs are going to want to do something too. Well, they can't just simply roll over the same tax anyway that was already going on, because that's been allocated by the Royals. So then the Chiefs are going to want something. And what I do wonder is maybe, because you're crossing the river. It's still downtown. It's still in Kansas City. I've said before, I don't care where the Royals play. As long as
North Kansas City, it's a different city.
As long as North. Yes. As it's still Kansas City proper, like overall, overall. So, because I view all things as Kansas City.
We're all together.
I grew up in Lee Summit, but people are like, where are you from? Kansas City. Kansas City. I'm from Lee Summit. Where's that? Felix Enrique Uzama. That's
there
where
you go.
Drew Lock. That's where I'm from. Jabron Kelly. That's where I'm from. Anyway, so it doesn't matter if they play over in Johnson County, Wyandotte, Clay, Cass. I mean, just be here. And I wonder if it would make the most sense if it's almost like split between the 3. If Johnson, the west side of the state line is taking care of the Legends and Sporting, and Clay is taking care of the Royals, and Jackson is taking care of the Chiefs. We have them all, but there's not one particular county that's just taking on the brunt of the load of 2 of the 3. And I also think with Mayor Q and also Frank White with their statements that they put out there, the Twitter or the actual written statement, I think they're both saying, like, the whole, the public financing stadiums, it's bad for business, it's bad for cities. Well, with them coming out and saying, look, this is what we're doing, and we're not going to get in a bidding war, but we've supported the Royals. We've done this in Jackson County. They're not exactly saying, well, no, this is bad for business. If they felt like it was bad for business and having a team in your county, in your city, then they wouldn't really be fighting back publicly and saying we're not getting in a bidding war. It might be North Kansas City's best for you. Oh, cool. People are still going to be spending money down in Jackson County and downtown, while then maybe going to a Royals game over there in Clay, right across the river. I don't care if they go to the site right across the river in the AMF bowling, old AMF bowling area, or if they go to the East Village, or if they go somewhere else. As long as they're still in Kansas City, if they move to Johnson County, then I'll pay whatever I'm going to pay on taxes. I'll vote for it. I've talked about it before. Pro tax. I want Kansas City to be a pro city. I'll pay the pro tax.
Yeah, the Jackson County right now, I was just looking this price up. They got a jail project going, detention center. It's a $300 million project. Now, they're not paying for that with sales taxes, okay? That's just done through the funds. But I just think a lot of these things are going to add up, and it just may be the Royals are going, we're not playing well. There are plenty of people who don't want us to be in true downtown because of a lot of reasons, the parking, all that stuff. And they could be like, this is going to be a tough deal to get this thing passed. We're not attached with the Chiefs. We're not playing well. The voters are taxed out on things. The numbers last time were 54-45 on the yes. And this will blow your mind. 53,000 people voted. That's what it was of all the people in Jackson County. And then the other side was 50. I mean, it was very close, 50-50, basically 50-49, the rolling roof thing. That almost passed. But so will the people want to come out there and vote yes for this thing? I don't know if they will.
Will people in Clay want to do it just as a, because I do think there's an element of the north side of the river sort of feeling like, hey, we're part of Kansas City too. Especially the more north you get, Platte County, into north up Berry Road, Liberty area. It's like, hey, enough with all the new cool things coming south of the river. There might be an element of bleep you, Kansas City. Yeah, we're here too. Clay County. Hell yeah, we're going to vote for that. The Royals are going to be in Clay County now. They're going to be on this side of the river. Make it a little bit easier for them to get to games.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have to cross the river and do all of that stuff to get down to Kauffman Stadium or wherever the Royals might play. I wonder if there's an element of that. Well,
it would be a huge project for Clay County.
Yes.
They haven't done things like this before.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's that chip on your shoulder element of the Northland. Now, they might be better off if there was one county up there, not two, because then, the kind of a unified front. But Clay County, we've talked about this, it's a growing county.
Yes.
Big time growing county. Tax base is growing and all that stuff.
And if you're
it's right
if you're
down,
the mayor,
you see downtown, it would, would you consider it downtown? Probably not, but it's on the other side of the river.
I would, but if you're
it's
talking
funny,
about,
like they talk about the Currents new project, right? It is on the south side of the river, and people call that downtown sometimes. But then someone else will call it a riverfront stadium. I don't think that's downtown.
No, Riverfront is in a different city.
It's in a different city. I don't consider that myself downtown.
So you consider downtown is just like buildings surrounding it, so like that traditional downtown ballpark.
Like it's really inside the loop.
Inside the loop is downtown to you.
How it is for me. Now, they'll tell you Crossroads is downtown.
Yeah, right.
Kind of is, kind of isn't.
I view
River
it all.
Market is kind of downtown, but it's not. It's not inside the loop.
See, I view it as a wider swath.
But the river's a big deal. The river is a big deal because there's only so many ways to cross the river. When they get the Buck O'Neil Bridge fixed, it'll be a huge help to get more people up that way. And then you've got the Bond Bridge on 29, and you got the Heart of America Bridge, whatever they call it now. There's ways to get across the river, but they'll need to be better, and they'll need to have better exits, and you'll need to be able to get off at 29 there. There's a weird little exit that takes you through an industrial kind of thing where I've only been like once for my son had a Boy Scout merit badge about materials, and like we went and they made polymers one Saturday morning. It's like, what am I doing here? I don't know what it was, but it was there's businesses down there who do things, right? But you'll need to be able to get off the road there because you can't just all get off at Armour and hang out in line in front of Tay's Burgers and say we're going to get to the ballpark. I mean, they'll need some things, but same thing on the East Village.
Yeah,
those little entrance and exit ramps are the littlest things that you can kind of get on and off of.
The East Village infrastructure to build and to change things around would be a disaster for while it's going on in terms of traffic and flow of traffic and the detours and everything to try to make that more accessible for a ballpark that would be put there that already is a bottleneck, in that area at times. So that
who knows what'll happen. The Royals haven't really come out publicly here and said anything. I was out there yesterday, for the news with Hunter Dozier, and I was like, where's Mr. Sherman? Is he around?
Right.
He went around when I saw him out there, but I was sniffing around a little bit, and there's not a lot of information that's going to be given out at this point.
You got to sneak around and find him. You got to go to different events like the Negro League Museum and all of that when he's there. When Sam McDowell was like, hey,
what's going on?
Sam and Vahe were like, all right, let's write the story of what this Royals thing is going to be, because he's not going to go on shows. He's not going to go and openly say, hey, let's talk to the media. It's going to be
until I'm at this event, ballot,
okay.
And that's when they go on shows.
Yep.
And they say, please vote yes.
That's
how I remember it in 2006.
Yes. When you're serious about where the Royals are is when they start making their rounds on media about getting their talking points out.
I remember going, one time to Lamar Hunt was still alive, and David Glass, they were both out stumping basically for yes votes for the vote back in 2006, and I remember being at like some little maybe registering voters or something on like Nolan Road in Independence, and they were there like
they were cruising Nolan.
They were cruising Nolan, going out trying to get votes, getting sound bites and stuff. It was just a different time. Now maybe listen, if they get something on the ballot, we haven't had a big vote like this in a while. So if they get something on the ballot, they'll be out and about running around, and Well, one of them will. Clark's not going to be running around until it comes time for them
for the Chiefs
to do something. And you know, we still don't have a lot of details on the Royals, like exactly how much money. Well, they don't know what something's going to cost. By the way, whatever it says, it'll be more because that's what happens during projects. They go up, they don't go down, and look for yourself to, if the government is involved, to get screwed over by contractors here or there, because that's just the way it works too. Because there's money to be had. Someone better snatch it all up. That's unfortunately the way the world works right now. So we'll see where it goes, but it's going to be a tough ask right now for the Royals with how they're playing and what it looks like for the future of this team, and just the economy. There's a lot of things going on right now that maybe aren't great for the economy, and people are like, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can afford adding more to the inflation that's already there on people's grocery bills, and if you're hopefully not, but if you're carrying credit card debt, things like that, if you're trying to buy a house, interest rates are up, this is maybe not the greatest time to go, yeah, sure, here.
Yeah,
let's roll this up.
Here's some more money.
Build this up. I know it's hard for you to make ends meet right now. Let me build a stadium for you.
That's right. We'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll continue rolling, wrap up the show, and we'll introduce you to our newest intern here at Sports Radio 810 at WHB. It is The Zone, and it's presented by Google Fiber, award-winning internet, no contracts, no data caps, up to 5Gs, 1G still, the same price since 2012. More Zone next.
Want to see more of The Zone? Watch the
All right, we continue right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB. Jason Anderson with you, Todd Lebo, Drake. Wrapping things up here on this Tuesday edition of the show. Introducing our newest intern, who is going to be a part of the station overall, correct? Not just a part of the zone, but a part of the station overall. So good, one show can't contain her.
Correct. Not really sure what we're doing yet, but we're going to switch it up every day and just learn all the things.
I love that. What is your name?
I'm Alex.
Alex?
I'm a student at KU, and over the summer had the opportunity to hang out with you guys. So excited to see what it's all about.
I figured you could introduce yourself.
You've got a history here
a relationship and a history
do.
here with Sports Radio 810 in the past.
I do. My dad worked here in sales, and we just, kept in touch with Chad. He has a daughter my sister's age, so we always were just around. And I was asked this morning if I had been to the station. I was like, yes,
when
but
you
I
were
might have
a
been
kid,
like 6. Yeah, I remember coloring on the floor, but now we're
on
actually
the
doing
actual
things.
floor.
So that's what is over there.
Yeah,
I
that
was
was probably
wondering
me,
what that
you know.
was. Oh my goodness.
So
my daughter has a sidewalk chalk. I didn't know we did that here.
Yeah, well,
That's,
if you're lucky.
Was it this building or was Kyle with us at the old building?
He was there at the old building too, but I think you were probably here. I can't
no
imagine.
idea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the old building. Yeah,
He's been gone from here for a while. He got out and got a real job.
You weren't alive. You weren't alive at the old building. I'm
Okay.
gonna
How old
guess.
are you?
I'm 20.
Yeah,
you weren't alive.
Okay. I was like, I do not
Nope.
remember.
Nope, it is definitely this building.
We've been
Okay.
in this building for 21 years, about now.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
About now. This
so
building is old enough to drink.
Yeah.
about time. I've been wanting it to buy me beer for a while. So you go to KU, and,
Yes.
and what do you do at KU? What are you wanting to do?
So I'm going into my junior year, and I am a strategic communications major with a sports media concentration, but then my minor's in sports management, which is the kicker of
That is a lot. I mean,
I know.
Back in the days of me just broadcasting major, coaching minor, that was so much easier to say.
Mhm.
That is a lot of words and a lot
I
of things.
know. And they're just making it more and more words. I feel like every major they add on we have one that's like, it's an acronym of like 5 letters. So I know it has a lot of titles, but I don't know what it is. But yeah, I think I'm looking more into the production side. I just don't know what that means I want to tell people what to do, and I would love to talk about sports in the meantime. But yeah, so
full-time telling people what to do, part-time talking about sports.
Exactly.
So, be on air. Just tell people what to root for, who to
Yeah.
fire, things like that, and you talk sports. Do you want to be on this side of the camera or this side of the microphone at all, or
I'm not
behind the
sure.
scenes?
I at school I work on 2 separate shows. One is called On the Clock, and I'm actually the producer of that show, so I get to do a lot of the bossing around on that show. And that's our sports betting show, which I am starting to get into that just to learn more about it, because I was like, if I'm telling you what to talk about, I should probably at least know what I'm talking about. And then I'm also on camera for a show called Run It Back. Our producer Blake for that is absolutely amazing, and it's just all a bunch of journalism school kids, and that Run It Back show is kind of a once a week, just like 20 minutes of like recap. Specifically KU sports. I did basketball for women's, men's, and then switched over to baseball and softball once those were obviously over and earlier than we wanted them to be. But so I was on air for that one, and learned how to be in front of the teleprompter, everything like that. And I'm not sure yet if I want to be in front or behind. I like to say it's a really bad problem, but that I love everything in sports that I've done, and I haven't found something I hate yet. So
I'll just do this long enough.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's your first day hanging out here. Believe me, we'll see what we can do to ruin that.
You've seen Kansas football actually make a bowl game.
Yes.
While you're a student there, that's pretty rare.
Oh, it's pretty rare.
Thousands of kids graduated the last
That's
10
right.
years without having a bowl game, so that was fun, right?
Yeah, and I actually got to go. My whole family went down to Memphis. It was kind of a disaster.
Yeah.
Did you leave early?
The game,
Yeah.
no.
Okay. Many
No.
people left early and didn't
I
realize the
called-
comeback was on.
My best friend is also in the sports media world, and she left early. She is the biggest KU football fan I've ever met.
Not really. If she
Clearly
left
not.
early.
Oh, I know. Her dad played for the team, everything, and her family left. And I called her, and I was like, get back in here.
Turn around.
And I guess the stadium was letting people who had left come
Yeah.
back, because so many KU fans did that when they thought it was over. And people were running and rushing back to her mom was driving the car, and her dad and her said, pull over. They got out of the car, left the mom in the car, and ran back into the stadium.
Left the mom. Did the mom ever make it back into the stadium, or was she just sitting in the car?
Honestly, I don't know.
Hour later, just hanging out. We'll find a ride. Go to the hotel, honey.
No one cared. It was, hey, if KU's going to win a bowl game or at least
gotta be there,
give it into an overtime, we put our efforts into it, which was awesome. I feel like I couldn't be upset with that outcome of that game. It was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Being a KU fan, you know,
well, you hope
never
it's
know
not.
if I ever get to see that again.
Not. Yes. Yeah, you hope it's more. You hope it's every year now.
I do. I really do, because it was a lot of fun. And running into people over winter break, down on is it Beale Street? Is that one?
Yeah.
It was so much fun. Just all of us were like, what are we doing here? Like, we're KU football fans. We're not supposed to have an off season.
Yeah, we're supposed to be getting ready for whatever non-conference game we're going to be playing in
exactly.
basketball right now in mid-December. So,
yeah.
So what is the what do you think the role will be here for you? Just jumping around from different things and sales and maybe the zone, maybe the program. I don't know.
Who knows? I was told Tuesdays I'm a sales, and then Thursday, Friday I'll be wherever else on the broadcast side or whatever. So
awesome.
We'll see.
Well, welcome and.
Be ready to hold Coach Leipold's feet to the fire. He got 2 raises.
That's
you
right.
Better make it back to another bowl game, right?
Yeah,
That's
hopefully.
Right. No bowl game this year. Need you on the air saying, I think it's time to fire him. Has Lance Leipold failed as a coach? Obviously joking. Thank you,
all right, thank
for
you guys.
hanging out with us and welcome. And looking forward to the summer as new interns in and around and with a little connection there. So we'll see how that goes this summer. Thank you, Todd, for hanging out with us as well. The program, Sprint Petro, comes up next. Eastern Conference Finals Game 4 tonight. Keep it locked right here on Sports Radio 810.
Attention, everyone. Are you ready for the summer heat?